12, 2000. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, GL 38, section 18, and Governor Gilley's March 29, 2023 revised order extending remote participation by all members in any meeting of a public body. This meeting of the Select Board and Finance Committee will be conducted both in person and via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and or parties with a right and or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the town's website. Committee members and members of the public may attend this meeting in person or remotely. Instructions for remote access can be found at the top of this agenda. Every effort will be made to ensure that those attending remotely can access the proceedings in real time via technological. Okay, who was recording at this time? Right at the bottom, with the bottom. Okay, pursuant to MGL 7C 38, section 20, after notifying the chair of the public body, any person may make a video or audio recording of an open session of a meeting of a public body or may transmit the meeting through any medium. At the beginning of the meeting, the chair shall inform other attendees of any such recordings. Any member of the public wishing to speak at the meeting must receive permission of the chair. The listings of agenda items and those reasonably anticipated by the chair, which may be discussed at the meeting. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items may not. Other items not listed may be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by law. State who is recording tonight?
The Eagle, the CTSB and the comment of Barrington.
And I'm sorry, do we need a roll call vote tonight? Roll call, okay, okay, all right, so we're going right to the first item on the agenda, which we are calling to order a finance committee meeting, at which we are all present. And we're just going to briefly review a reserve fund request from the town manager's office. Chris, could you briefly summarize that?
Good evening, Chris Rumbold, interim town manager. We have a request for a reserve fund transfer to the finance committee. For two purposes. The first is for $13,500 fund the services of Community Paradigm, which has been engaged to facilitate the recruitment of a new town manager. Secondly, the request for $24,577.50 to pay the first bill from Rich May PC, who are the attorneys that we have engaged, that the select board has engaged for the Houstonic Waterworks negotiations and strategy sessions. So two bills unanticipated, we're requesting reserve fund transfers for those.
Okay, so do we have any further questions?
Yeah, what does that leave us with in the reserve fund, if you have that handy?
It's $100,000.
Yeah, we haven't used any of it.
We haven't used
We
any
haven't
at all?
used any so far.
No, we did do it.
We did.
For the assessor's office, we did
Oh,
something.
I'm sorry, you are correct.
So would we? About 55, let's say 55 to be conservative.
$5,050.
Is how much is still there, right, so. Add another 40 down, yeah.
Is the bill for the search firm, is this for the retainer or is it total cost or is it gonna be
That's
more?
the expected total cost. So
Total
we'll
cost.
encumber that full amount. If we don't expend it, it'll roll back into.
All right.
Any further questions? Okay, with the roll call vote, Ann,
Did we make a motion?
you have a motion?
Oh, sure. I'll make a motion that we approve the reserve fund transfer with a total amount of 38,077.50 for the contracted services and legal fees as requested.
Second,
Any further comment? Seeing none, a roll call vote, Ann?
Aye.
Madonna?
aye.
Good.
Aye.
Aye.
And I'm aye as well, so,
Thanks, if you wouldn't mind signing it.
and we'll sign it right now.
Yeah, if you pass it around.
So I think we can,
Do we have to adjourn our
I
session?
believe we can adjourn our finance committee meeting.
We'll just call to order the joint select board and finance committee meeting. All select board members are present, all finance committee members are present. I'll go over a little bit of the process tonight. We are going to finish. The only thing we may finish tonight is tab 7, discussing the capital. And then we will go into each department. And we have taken no votes so far. We'll start, we're voting on each department. Then we'll go into special articles and then back to capital. I don't expect we'll finish tonight. I'm quite positive we won't. We have a meeting scheduled for Tuesday, March 25th at 6 p.m. And the finance committee's hearing is Tuesday, April 8th. The Tuesday, March 25th is 5 p.m. The public hearing is April 8th, Tuesday at 6 p.m. And my guess is we will get through to 7 or 7:30 tonight, and we will have enough, and we will continue. The public hearing, which is the April 8th, is when the public is heard. Tonight for us to make our recommendations. The finance committee's numbers will appear on the warrant. The select board will either recommend or not recommend, and then we'll hear public comment, the finance committee will on April 8th. So, bear with us, it's gonna be a little bit of a long night, but we will get started. The FY26 capital, tab 7, buildings and grounds. Joe, continue. And, I'm sorry, Joe. For those at the table, this will be updated. It's in the bottom right in red, it says 226.25. So we'll be using those numbers. Yeah, I'm not sure I got that one. Somebody have it up there. That's. And Chris, do you want to do that? Please? Oh, yeah. Do you want to explain that? What we said around? Okay.
So, under the buildings ground architectural engineering service, $100,000, courthouse improvements, $38,000. Great Barrington Fire Station, is $150,000. Chris, on that one, we still have $150,000 appropriation from last year. And that was really to tackle any roofing issues. We made some repairs, that could be something that could be taken out. Or maybe I would suggest you move it down to other building improvements and emergencies.
Can you speak up some? Can't really.
Yeah,
We have all the immediate improvements money from last year still available to us. And under the libraries, there's 2 items. It's the clamshell canopy and the exterior sconces, which will both be CPA money. Get approved at town visit. So, I don't know, if we want to change that, Chris, and various emergency improvements, just hold it down. Or it's in that budget,
When we get the capital the second time around, we can do it then.
okay. Any questions?
I'm sorry, I wasn't following it all. So for the libraries, you said there's the 195 CPA for the sconces and something else?
Yeah, for the sconces and the clamshell over the entryway.
And what was the remaining 100,000 then?
There was, $70,000 line items there for random, that's not needed.
That's not what?
Not needed.
No, okay, so now it's, oh, I see, so it's 30,000 now, got it,
Chris,
Okay.
revised sheet,
okay,
it's taken.
okay.
So just one question, just to clarify on the fire station request of 150,000. I thought I just heard you say you didn't need that after all.
So if you recall last year, we had the assessment of 5 buildings. And what we ended up doing is I asked for half of the immediate needs. And then we ended up settling on half of the half. Okay. I didn't have the opportunity to spend that money last year. We did some of the things, but we didn't spend all that money. So in the last year for the fire station, it was $150,000 for the roof,
Okay,
for the roof.
that was not spent.
That was not spent. So this was basically, I think, in our projection from last year, this was in the projection, so I got carried in.
So I'm correct to say that it is removed. We
Yes.
can remove it and delete and subtract it from the 613.
Yes, what I'm asking though, that you consider is that you put it down under, you subtract it from up above and you put it down under building improvements and needs and emergencies.
And what would it be used for?
Well, emergencies. So, so like this past year, we've had 3 different emergencies. We've had, server, and then the heating and cooling system in the server room at the police station died on us. We had a failure of the booking room at the police station, that we had to replace part of that system. And then we had some control valves at Mason. So that, the total of those 3 items is more than $100,000.
Did you have enough money in there for that?
So I had to use some of my operating.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
that's why I go first for a repair. If I don't have it, then, and if you're borrowing the money, we evaluate it here and say, there's no sense us turning around and replacing something that doesn't have a 20-year life with capital money that's borrowed for 20 years. So if it's a repair, that is a shorter term repair, we will clearly do it on our operating.
Thank you.
Just as a procedural matter, have we ever had a capital budget with an explicit reserve in there?
We have certain capital reserves. We have before last maybe 2 or 3 years included an authorization for an expense that might come up that we haven't planned for. Because we were experiencing systems and buildings that hadn't been maintained in a while, if boilers go down. I think we experienced some things at Mason in the past where the air conditioning and heating was always off and we didn't have the funds to pursue it. So we started to add a line like this for emergencies.
But we had, until this conversation, we did not anticipate adding $150,000 for such contingencies.
No, there's a
Onto
line
our-
item there that's 100,000, and Joe was asking to add another, 150 to that line.
Basically keep the 6, what is it?
613.
613 the same, just move it down. And again, if we don't come with the emergencies, that the appropriations there doesn't get used.
Yeah, we wouldn't use the offer. We don't, if nothing happens, that's great. We won't borrow it. We won't need it. We're just authorized to if needed.
Just so you understand what we're faced with, in that cold snap that we had that week or so, that it was down around 0. The Mason Library has 2 boilers to keep it running in those peak conditions. 1 boiler was down because of the valving system that 2 of the control valves failed.
No, I totally understand the emergency aspect. I just had a very, purely procedural about whether or not we included that, but I get it.
I guess I'm just stating that since we already have an emergency for emergencies improvements, 100,000 set aside, I'm gonna say that I feel that's sufficient and not to keep the 150,000 that we know is not needed for what it was originally intended for. We do have a line item for emergencies and improvements. I am not comfortable adding, 150% more to that line item. So I would suggest not.
We'll get to that discussion.
Yes.
on the streets and bridges.
Yes, please.
Mhm.
And the change here is, well, first of all, some of the street costs, we got it based on some of the paving techniques that Joe and his engineers have been looking at. And the other thing is that we pulled the Brookside Bridge cost out of the street road budget. and
Yes.
Put it in as a special article. of the-
So, engineering, $750,000, street bridges and culverts, $10,255,000. That. That line item is a little misleading in the sense that, $6 million of that funding is being prepared, is being. Not even given to us by the state's doing the project right now.
That's a CCOM project, right?
No, that's the Route 41 project.
Okay.
And another $580,000, we were successful in getting award for West Sheffield Road to repair a washout. So that's $6.5 million in that kind of grant. Or by other funding means. And we also have chapter 90 monies to the tune of $600,000. That comes off that, so I don't see where you're borrowing over here, Chris.
This- the middle column.
Middle.
Oh, okay, yeah. Right. So the borrowing ends up at $4 million for the 10 million or 10 or 11 million dollars worth of work.
We wanted to show the $6 million cost of North Plain Road in here, so that you understand what it would take. And that we have been successful in getting DOT to come to the table and do that work for us. So it's not insignificant. That's $6 million, otherwise we wouldn't have had it.
Significant,
That would be our road budget for 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
right.
You know, and
It's something that we had planned on over the last few
Yeah.
years, which is why you have been seeing pretty scary 5-year plans. So this dials it back.
and along those lines, we're working on one for the future, that's $28 million for Route 183. So again, a big win for the taxes now.
That's good news. So so I get it straight. So in the memo, it refers to a 2-mile CCOM crossroad project.
Yep.
But that's not $6 million project.
The one you're looking at, the updated sheet with us, and both well. So originally by traditional grinding and cleaning method, that was in the original budget at $2 million or 2.4. And by looking at the cores and the samples out there, so you see us out there drilling on the road to see what it is. We analyzed it, we had a company look at it, we came up with a relative paving method that's equal or better structurally than the traditional method. So again, it equally better.
Okay, good news.
And some of the other things you'll see different in town this year is, you see us doing the crack sealing, which helps keep the water out of the roads and keep it going onto the subsurface. In the budget this year, there's monies to put a sealer on Main Street, which basically adds 4 years. We'll do that in a few other areas of town too, as well as our crack sealing. So we're trying to add longevity to our roadway system without spending the construction money to do it without it above front.
You may remark that the engineering money seems high. And that goes directly to preparing for what Joe mentioned. Was an eventual Route 183 repaving project. The total cost of that construction. That we will realize through a state grant is 28 million. So this is comparatively short money. The town pays the design. The state will pay for the construction. So we need to stay in that process in order to be queued up before that road completely.
And the target is the design, we bear the design cost of state standards. The design cost will somewhere be around total about $1.4 million to get $28 million in work. And That's construction scheduled for 2030 on the books right now. But I'm trying to keep the engineering a year ahead. Because what that will do for us is it will allow us to jump into an opening if someone drops out, another town drops out, and interject another project.
Didn't that happen for the Route 41 project? When we were ready,
We had funds to do pre-work, like culvert work. and
Right,
things to prepare for the state, so that helped.
that helped, yeah.
Yeah, so and again, I think with the state, we're building that relationship that we mean business. They see us changing the culverts. They know if they come in here, they're gonna build us a road that's gonna last. You know, the culvert work you see, the effort has been capitalized, but I'm trying to sneak it out of the operating budget, so we don't have to borrow it.
Right. Well, much appreciated.
Any questions, other questions on roads and streets? Parks. So in the parks here, $397,000, of that 397, $107,000 of it is a CPA equipment improvement item. So it's successful at town meeting. That will fund that work, if not, the work won't get done. There's, in talking with the Parks Commission, in working with the Parks Commission, there's needs as time goes on to do more park work and improve our parks and stuff like that. Where it falls into the priority, you guys have to help determine that. But when we turned around and we looked at the skate park as the next park. And the work that would have to be done to improve that, you're talking like 1.5 million dollars. That's a hard nut to swallow every year. So, or that's a hard nut to swallow when that comes up. So what's in there is a $200,000 to go into a stabilization account. So we can, you know, build that money a little bit each year and then do a park, build the money each year and then do a park. Kind of like we purchase fire trucks.
But we're not actually borrowing the 200,000 until we need it. So how is it a fund? If we're not actually, it's on the capital sheet, but we're not actually borrowing it now. So we're just wanting everyone to agree to a partial of each of these, but in the long run, we're gonna wait until it's ready to go and then borrow $1 million, right?
Exactly.
Right, it has to be authorized unissued.
I'm sorry, what was that has to what?
It has to authorize unissued.
Unissued.
We're not gonna borrow it and pay interest on it, let it sit there for a few years. We're gonna borrow it when we need it.
So you just don't want us to see that $1 million price tag in 1 year. So you're trying to have people approve parts of it over a period of years and then borrow all the money when you can do the project.
Yeah, it's not an effort to be sneaky or anything.
No, I'm not saying sneaky, but it's a way not to have sticker shock.
Well, that's it. And then you focus on the next one and then you start, you know, putting the money aside, you know, getting the approvals aside, and then you go to work and do it.
Our thought too is, as we discussed, was that, once we have an open space and recreation plan in place and we can qualify for grants, we can show that we already have an authorization in place for matching
And
funds.
then the grants would offset what we'd actually have to borrow. I see that.
If the grant says a 50% match and we're into it for 2 years, we might have 50% already approved. And that would put us to the top of the list to get there.
That's very good information to know that doing it this way results in the possibility of not needing all this to be borrowed in the long run.
Yeah. So, and, you know, the support you've given us with the engineering monies, it's kind of paid dividends. It's allowed us to do engineering. We got West Sheffield Road because you approved the engineering monies. We did the engineering. We had a shovel ready project. The grant came out. They said, oh, you're good to go. You've already invested in it. So you're going to do the work. So we're doing the same thing for East Sheffield right now, where the little washout is next to the river and East Sheffield Road. So your engineering monies goes a long ways.
But just following up on Lucas' point, if these authorizations, you know, facilitate grant requests, and they don't represent actual money being spent until you're ready to go, then why not ask for more here, all at one, all at once, as opposed to staging it over time?
I guess one of our thoughts when talking with the Parks Commission, too, is Steve, feel free to jump in here. Is we'll turn around if we can have some type of steady appetite to fund the park, so it's not up 1 year, down next year, up here 1 year, down. So, the parks needs this much a year versus, jumping all over the place. We're trying to figure out long-term debt service and things like that.
Sure, although it doesn't really, that remains hard to predict, because we don't know when you'll actually be spending that money and when it will run through Allison's interest charge.
It is, we have some work to do, but by turning around and saying and being able to give them the town meeting minutes that show the authorization is in place to do it.
Yeah.
It really helps.
No, I fully appreciate that, and I fully support that. It's just,
And hopefully
I'm.
we get the approvals on the money.
We're in the bizarre world here where I'm saying, why don't you just ask for more there? Because it's free until you borrow the money. So, and if it's helpful, then
Yeah,
it's a good thing.
again, we didn't want to turn around and have sticker shock here either, but by all means, if we put $500,000 into an authorization and we went for some type of grant, and they seen that,
Yeah,
but
okay.
they also might say, okay, well, you spend your $500,000, we'll give you the other $750,000.
So I'd be inclined to be, I personally would be inclined to be more generous with authorization, provided that we get terrific information from your department about actually when you're gonna borrow the money, so we can
Yes.
plan for that.
Yeah, I guess I just want to dovetail. I find this a little confusing because again, if our goal is to sort of be able to sort of predict what our borrowing will be every year, so that we can anticipate what our increased interest and payments will be on our borrowing for the following year, to never know when borrowing is going to happen. That makes me a little, and I get, the grant part makes more sense to me. This to me seems like, so in 5 years, we'll vote we'll vote 200,000 every single year. And then in 5 years, we'll borrow $1 million that we didn't anticipate that we, the voters and the committee weren't thinking would be borrowed because we had approved it ages ago. To me, it doesn't feel like it's sort of making it clear how much we're gonna borrow that's gonna affect our operating budget for the following year.
We carry a number for unauthorized,
We do, we disclose what's authorized, unissued, and then at the time's borrowing, obviously that number is known.
Right, but I guess I'm still reflecting on last year where our interest payment went up so much because we borrowed so much. And some of it was deferred borrowing from previous, approved approvals. Just how do we get a handle on this so that we're not, sort of 1 year borrowing a lot, 1 year borrowing a little? I guess I would like to see us have a steady borrowing rate so that we're not constantly flip-flopping, but that's, I think, a larger discussion.
I would just add to it, I think that's a very important point, and I think you are kind of, in a way, trying to do that, to normalize the level of borrowing. I think it's a little bit tricky because you really need to, also deal with what are the actual capital expenditures and all that. But I think ultimately that should be the goal, because that would be very helpful, I think, for everybody. If we could, somehow get to that level, try to normalize it. Yeah.
Again, I'm not trying to balance that company down here, but if we have a debt service that we borrow for, that we have to pay, and we have an unissued debt service that has a potential debt service, an unissued borrowing that has a potential debt service, shouldn't the two be added together to make sure we're not going over our pocketbook rating?
No, I think we are all saying the same thing. Yeah,
I mean,
the idea here is just kind of to understand what is the maximum
Because if you don't take
and
that
manage
into
to
account,
that.
what
Yeah.
Ann's saying, what could happen? I mean,
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think we need to manage both sides, what's actually issued and what is being authorized to issue. Yeah.
Maybe I'll conclude this by saying, I think this is it's been a challenging issue for the group for the last couple of years to sort of work through this. I think we've made a lot of progress with Allison's help on sort of understanding the workflow and how things are communicated. and how it, and when do these actual borrowings run through, our operating statement, so. All right, so, again, if the authorizations are helpful in grant applications, I fully support them. But we have to continue to be interactive and actually when those monies are spent.
May I ask something? We're still speaking of the park, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Here's my thought, probably not to make it very popular. The time's pretty tough right now. Some people are losing jobs. And when, a while back when COVID hit and whatnot, parks were closed, they changed the way they work. People losing jobs, I think it's more important. I like parks. I love going to, not here, but I love going to York Lake. I like going up to Beartown, nice wildflowers, et cetera, going there and stuff. But wow, the people are losing jobs. I think, to me, the park is kind of like a low end thing. I don't think we need to spend tons of money on it until it appears necessary. We've got a lot of parks in this town for 7,000 people, 7 plus people. And again, people are losing jobs. If we're gonna keep a park, it doesn't make me happy to see people losing jobs if we're gonna keep some of our 8 or 10 parks.
What's that?
You can move on.
So we'll jump down to wastewater. So we have it in there for Ford F-250, engineering and design, 800,000. The CMOM, that, that's our engineering and upgrades for, corrected water infiltration into the system. And then sewer mains and manholes, for $100,000. Pump station upgrade of Avery Lane, and that there's, that SRF loan didn't come through for FY26.
I have a question here, and that's, how do we determine how much is gonna get funded from retained earnings and how much against borrowing? And what is the rule here?
The wastewater enterprise fund has a healthy retained earnings account that we can use for smaller items, design, ongoing expenses. Which to us, it just makes sense not to have to borrow for larger projects, a pump station upgrade. Rather than deplete the retained earnings by, $3 million at a pop. That seems more appropriate to borrow on these larger things.
So you are looking at capital type of project that are no longer depreciation line, those should be fine,
Of
funded
course,
by
like-
borrowing.
I mean, at wastewater, the vehicle will last 8, 10 years
Right.
or more, that's a long-term thing. These substantial costs at the pump station at $3 million, it's gonna last 30 or 40 years.
And
That's something that makes more sense to follow.
and what is our borrowing cost right now? For the,
So what
I'm sorry, I don't know.
Alyssa, what is the borrowing cost here?
We were estimating 5%.
5%.
For permanent borrowing.
But the funding that we just did 4 pump stations, and we're finishing up, and that was done with an SRF loan. Clean water loan, that basically is 0 interest.
Well, that's a different kind of.
Yeah, but that's how we try to fund it. And then we pay the debt service, and then as you get to your last year or so payment, that's how they forgive any principal.
So are you gonna fund it also at a
So-
0 cost?
That's what I just said to Chris. So we have 4 pump stations done. We're in the process of doing another one this year, which was initially planned to be done out of retained earnings. And I was able to get that added to the SRF loan as a change order.
But
So
you were
yeah,
gonna do it out of retained earnings.
I'm sorry?
You were gonna fund it initially by retained.
Last
earnings.
year, you approved $1.5 million to do that. So
Right,
1.5.
1.5 last year
right,
out of retained earnings.
right.
And we don't need to touch that retained earnings. We're getting it added to our SRF loan and the change order, which at the end of the day will be 0% because the last year or so, year and a half interest typically is forgiven.
No, I
last year-
understand
sorry,
that. I mean, that's
The
the-
last year or so payments are forgiven, make it a 0%.
No, Joe, my question is, are we funding at zero cost or are we funding at 5%? Could we have substantial retained
Depends on which
earnings?
one it ends up.
That's my
If it
question
ends up-
here.
If it
I'm
ends
sorry?
up, if it ends up on the SDF, through the Mass Clean Water Trust, it's typically a very low interest loan, and then they end up doing an interest forgiveness at the end.
No, I understand that. I mean, Joe explained, but I'm just
But
saying,
if for
is that
some
what we are
reason it
planning
doesn't
to
make
do?
it through
Yeah, that's what
SRF,
she said.
Okay,
and we have to
okay.
do a regular borrowing,
Then it's fine. Okay, thank
So
you.
we have
Yeah.
two large expenditures ahead of us there.
No, I understand. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I got it.
All right,
Thank
so
you.
I guess my recommendation is that $3.5 million does not need to be there this year. Because we did not get approved for our SRF loan to do, because our next SRF loan will include this pump station and the tree upgrade of the treatment plant. So next time we'll apply will be this October for next year.
Okay,
So that can come out. We're not gonna do anything there. We have the engineering money to move forward. Between what we have there and up on the previous years. And that F-250 pickup truck, we put that on the lift and went through it, and we don't need to replace that this year.
Oh, good.
So I'm sorry, so what are we taking out of wastewater? The pickup truck,
The pickup
eighty,
truck,
85,000, 85.5,
Yeah.
and the pole pump station?
the pump, that could come out. Chris, if you disagree with me, no.
No, you had mentioned that we were checking all the trucks.
Yeah.
So we're
So
not
the
going-
entire 3,200,000.
we're not gonna borrow.
But you'll,
If you had this information, I would have had all those updated for you.
Oh, sorry, yeah, no.
Removing that entire thing,
but
so
you'll-
no
you'll
borrowing. for
probably fill it
wastewater.
next
next year, yeah.
It will and more.
Yeah.
But it would also be noted that it's being borrowed under that SRF loan, which will then be 0 interest.
But can I say, so then, should we be predicting borrowing about 6 million next year?
No, we're not doing next year, so let's do it.
Well, but it's sort of odd, right? So we're borrowing in anticipation of park improvements, which we're not gonna spend. But now we're not gonna borrow because we're not going to spend it.
But we don't have a loan.
But in the anticipation of a loan, that will be $6 or $7 million.
You know what, let me ask, the people with regards to loan to see if that helps this loan. In the past, it hasn't been necessary.
Right, okay,
Okay, so I'll get that back.
okay,
back.
Yeah.
We probably won't go back to this tonight anyway, so.
Okay.
2 weeks,
right,
yeah.
right.
And his point's well taken, yeah, if it helps. the
Yeah,
Process.
yeah.
Okay, any questions on the remainder of the capital?
Can I just ask one clarifying question? Earlier on, I made a note the last time, it was very late. When we were talking about the dump truck Freightliner.
Yeah.
I have a note here, can do without. Am I right?
Again, we looked at the 3 big freight liners that we have. And we feel they all could be added a year or two. So we have one this year, one next year, one the year after. So we're okay. As long as you don't cut my maintenance budget. We're okay not buying that this year. But Chris had a good point. I don't know if he wants to share that, Chris.
Well, as I alluded to last time, and as I recommended in my cover memo, we're keeping that truck in. Because it takes so long to build those and get them delivered. And if we waited for an authorization next year, then it would be another
It'd be 2 years.
2 to 3 years before it was actually delivered, and then it would be. We would need it before then. So,
What we can do is, this
it's
time,
better to have the authorization so that we can order it when we need it and move forward. I think if we waited until next year, it would be too late. The other 2 freight liners that are in the queue, we can push those out,
Okay,
but it's too risky to lose one.
Any other questions on that? Seeing none, let's start with a review on tab 6, page 1.
Thanks.
Page 1, just start. The beginning was the first page 1. So this is selected.
Is everybody paid tab 6, page 1?
And that's unchanged,
Yes.
correct?
It is unchanged. We discussed this.
Yeah, we've
I'm
heard
not
this.
sure. I don't think I need to go through it
Well,
again.
The format now will be, if you have any questions or motions, that's fine. Otherwise, ultimately make a motion from the finance committee first to recommend. And then the select board will vote second.
Can I just get a reminder of what the contingency is for? I'm sorry, I didn't write notes on this.
Contingency is for mid-year salary increases in any department. Somebody has more training, more education, we have to recruit somebody new. Contingency is the line that allows the town manager to add funds to a salary line if needed.
Do we have a motion?
I make a motion that we approve the select board town manager requested budget of $473,400.
I'll second that.
Roll call vote?
So you don't need roll call.
Okay, all right, great.
Oh, aye.
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 Hi.
I have a motion from the select board.
I make a motion to approve the select board town manager budget for $473,400.
I have a second.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Page unanimous. Page 2, finance committee.
Finance committee. Where we left off with no change here, this is all.
I thought we had discussed, removing the line for dues and memberships.
Well, point well
So I
taken.
make a motion that we reduce the line for dues and memberships to 0.
But I thought we do use student membership.
I thought we had a discussion about that. and it was-
I thought we did too, but I thought,
Something came up at the end. where-
yeah, we do use it.
We did need it.
Yes,
All right,
That looks
pretty
good here.
certain on that.
okay, in that
Right.
case, I make a motion that we approve the finance committee requested budget of $100,200.
Have the vast majority of which is our reserve fund. which we
Yes.
use for our
Right.
department. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
And votes aye.
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 Hi.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to say, so this year we've already spent 196 in the dues and memberships. So we're spending it on something.
Okay,
I think it's to be members of this the statewide.
Yes.
It's ATFC annual fees.
Yes.
I failed to make that note. Thank you.
All right, I'll make a recommendation to approve the finance committee budget of $100,200.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Next is page 3, town account.
Okay, don't think we have any changes here. Do we have a motion?
I move that we approve the requested budget for town accountant of $212,110.
I'll second.
Second.
All votes?
Aye.
Aye.
Same motion?
So,
Okay.
motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Page 4, technology.
I move that we
This-
approve.
Wait,
before you
there's
do
a
that,
change
this is an
here.
Updated page,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
so this is a page that.
There was an addition.
Yeah, there's an addition to this.
So the addition was in line 53000. We talked about, the town moving certain functions to the cloud. We do still need to maintain services locally, servers locally. We have also investigated the relative cost of going in Microsoft 365, which is a continuous update, and Microsoft is no longer supporting previous versions of Office software. So this line for software licenses is increased, and the total proposed budget is $361,195.
That's the only increase.
None.
I move that we approve the requested budget for technology of $361,195.
Second,
The votes.
Aye.
Aye.
aye,
Unanimously approved. Go ahead.
I'll make the same motion.
Sorry.
Okay, a motion and a second discussion.
Chris, can you speak a little bit to the cloud? With that, so we're still hitting in future years, people can move off, it's just that the current, some software that we have staff on, couldn't operate on cloud basis, is that the decision?
So some of the things we need are based on local service that can't be moved to the cloud, so there will always be local servers required. We'll look at it every year if we can move to the cloud. I'll be quite frank, some businesses went to the cloud, they regret it, now they're coming back. We'll look at it every year, that's all I can say.
Just as an example, I think you mentioned that the assessor system have to be service based.
I'm coming back and forth.
Okay, make it very hard to keep that.
Between chiefs.
Okay. We have a motion and second, all in favor?
Right.
Hold on one second.
Any questions?
Yeah, I think that's what I said. Eileen, you have a question of process oriented?
Why are you voting now when you haven't had your public hearing?
Not a vote, it's a recommendation.
Uh,
Put on the wa- It's to get the final number on the warrant,
On the
on the,
public
before the
hearing.
public hearing. What we do every year.
I know, but I don't think it's been clear this year that these are only recommendations and that you will vote again after the public hearing. These are not final recommendations, correct?
Thank you, yes.
Yeah, Eileen, I just want to agree. I'm certainly voting with that assumption. My votes are to put these
Shall
on-
our motions include
There should be a
recommendation for
recommendation.
public hearing?
Yes, you're voting to approve, it's not an approval of the recommendation before the public hearing.
Okay,
Because all of these votes also sort of a priority to our discussion about whether or not we're going to be to have a budget that doesn't require a 2.5 override, correct? We still haven't had that discussion.
If we cut enough tonight, we won't have to have that discussion, you're correct.
Right,
Yes, but the bigger picture, we still have to make some cuts. to
That's-
Resolve our.
right. So we're not we're going through this, not making any cuts, but we may eventually need to, at the public hearing, talk about some
Well,
cuts.
hopefully, before we get done tonight, we'll have made some cuts, we've only gone through 4 pages. so
Okay.
far. So I'm hopeful
Okay.
that we will make some.
But that's a helpful clarification. Thank you.
Okay, because I just also want to say the new budget is, pretty much the same as the old budget in terms of the total amount. Sorry. The total operating budget.
Okay, page 5 is the assessors.
The assessors, yes.
so
Anyone,
I had a question on contracted services line 53010. I know that last year was an anomaly because we had to do a lot of contracted services because we were going through that larger review. So I'm looking back to the fiscal year 24, where that line was 38,000 and now we're at 47,000. I'm wondering why the increase of 10.
It was, yeah, this coming year is
Last
not.
year was
This
the,
this
last
year.
year was the
Yeah,
recertification year,
and
right?
it's every
Not this
5
year,
years, yes.
last year.
Yes,
So-
it will go up
Good,
again in 5 years, yeah.
Let Chris answer.
Our assessor is available to answer questions. Ross? You have to unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Right,
Questions about contracted services?
so the question was contract services?
Yeah.
yes, sir.
Right, I think what you're seeing in there is we had to put some money in to resolve some munis related issues in an effort to make it easier to get the bills out correctly. There were some issues that go all the way back to 2013 that we've, uncovered, and we need to get those issues corrected. So when we do these bridge, there's a bridge, what they call a bridge from the Patriot camera system that we use. that moves data into Munis so that we can get an extract over to the treasurer collector's office to get the bills out. And there's some issues with that we need to correct, and there's money in there for that.
So is that increase, just an increase for this year, and we can anticipate that the contracted services line will be back in the lower range of 38,000 or so next year?
I would hope so.
Okay, so this is the anomaly.
Well, but now I'm confused and I just want to clarify. So the 38,000 was for the recertification year?
No,
No, the 64,000.
That's what I thought, which is the current year.
995.
Oh, that was last year.
That was last year.
yeah, that was for the full, 25, 2025.
But we're working on
That's
26,
We're-
right?
Right, but
That's,
we're-
that was the, last year was the recertification year, that's why you see that number there.
Okay.
Okay, do we have a motion on that?
I move that we recommend
Mhm.
the assessor's budget of $217,840.
Second.
Votes and
What was your final amount of the assessment?
200.
$217,840.
Yep. I second that, or I'll vote aye.
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 Same motion?
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous?
Thanks, Ross.
Thanks, Charles.
Thank you.
Page 6, collector treasurer. And where we left off there.
The only line I had a note on was the contracted services, but I think we had that question answered. Does anybody have any notes?
I have something here, I don't know why, selecting excise tax, I know. Have two asterisks by 53,800 and 554,200. Because office supplies,
So what's your question?
I guess, I made a note there and I don't remember what that was for. So I'll let it slide.
We don't have questions, Alicia's online. There are questions.
Hi, can you hear me?
Any questions?
Well, we were just, I'm sorry if you could clarify one more time, the contracted services line, what the use is.
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, just making sure. Contracted services is used for our deputy collector, who collects, I think what Garfield was talking about, who collects our excise tax bills after they go uncollected from our office, and then he marks them at the registry. We pay him, he gets a certain amount for that, and then we also pay our OPEB for our OPEB actuarial study out of that line, which is about $5,000 a year.
That's all necessary. Sounds like there's a person in there too many or no?
I mean, it depends on how much excise you want collected. That's my only mechanism for collection after it goes uncollected, because if somebody doesn't pay their real estate taxes, I can then, place a lien on their property. My only mechanism for collecting excise that goes unpaid is having a deputy collector.
I think we've spoken before that this in general is a profitable undertaking for the town.
Right,
We're spending
Yes, every and actually I will say that he also on top of that, I'm sorry, he also prints our bills. So he prints stuffs and mails our bills for us as well. So that comes out of that line as well, that same person.
And maybe just take a step back, in this department, as with some of the others that we've been recommending, that they're prior to the budget binder being presented to our committees, there was a fair amount of back and forth about minimizing the increase in the budgeted amount, and the increase is only 2%. For this department, which again, is given the inflation and certain expenses, is pretty.
And I'd also just like to point out that there is a new line in there, which is accounting for most of that increase, which is the fire district stipend, which I had said last time, that used to be paid to us directly from the fire district. We're now budgeting for and paying for it through our payroll, but they reimburse us for that.
Where does the money show?
Goes
That's-
into local receipts.
Local receipts? Okay.
Isn't this a more complicated way to show this normal expenditure? Or, how is it an improvement?
Well, so before we were having to wait on the fire district to issue my staff their stipends. Sometimes they weren't coming in a timely manner, and then we were having to wait for and sometimes not receiving our 1099s before we could do our taxes. This way it's run through our payroll, and then reimbursement comes on the other end.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, do we have a motion?
I move that we recommend the projected collector treasurer budget of $281,596.
Second,
Votes, and?
I,
Aye.
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 Alright.
Great, thanks.
I'll make the same motion.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Page 7, human resources.
And it was a total increase over last year of 6%. I think we had some discussions about, there was some discussion and feedback about the bilingual language stipend. Paraphrasing in my words, I think where we left off is that somewhat, these are relatively small dollar amounts, but a complex and important issue that we may want to reevaluate over the coming year about how we provide these services, but it's a relatively modest amount of money and a service that we do need to provide.
I guess I did want to follow up because I recall the conversation and I guess, when someone gets a stipend, is it because that this is additional work that causes their day to be longer or they're on call? Or how does it work that causes their?
That was
Oh, is that an
you, yeah.
echo?
That
Oh.
was your echo, yeah.
So I guess if it's something that somebody's doing over the regular course of their workday, and I think somebody else brought this up, which I thought was a good point. I mean, yes, it's inconvenient to be pulled out of your office to be asked to do something else, but that's something that happens to most of us, I think, in our jobs.
Stipend is paid for a service that is not part of their job description.
Yeah. It's
Then they usually do get something extra for it.
Even if it's done within the normal working hours?
If that's not part of their job description, if we want them to do it and be available to do it, that's usually what's done.
I was thinking that might be the case, okay.
Just on this conversation, Sophia's on the line, just, have we looked at like a translation service where you pay per call? It's kind of working out those costs, like, was that part of the process kind of leading up to this line item?
Well, I don't know, Sophia, I'm gonna unmute you. You may have to mute any devices on your end.
I do want to say, we did bring that up at the last meeting and I did ask some people. who have-
Yes,
I
can
did
you
wanna say,
all
we
hear
did
me?
Bring that up at the last meeting and I did ask some people who have.
Sophia, you need to mute whatever
I'm
devices you.
sorry to cut in. I'm a bit lagged, but I will.
Mute whatever devices you.
That what I'm doing.
Sophia, sorry, there's a connection issue.
I guess, I did ask some people who had used these call-in. They did say they weren't really happy with them. I did want to mention that, so. Cause I was thinking, and I was gonna ask them. Happy with them. I did want to mention that, so. Cause I was thinking, and I was gonna ask them.
There you are, twice.
And I think she's just going, yeah.
You're being repetitive, man.
You know how you hate your own voice?
You know, this is small dollar
I know,
amounts, it's
I know.
important, but it's tricky to
I
get
know.
this right. So I think where we left off is this is something for future work, perhaps, you know, over the coming year to reassess how we do this, because again, a handful of departments have this type of stipend. And you're right, there are cheaper alternatives which may or may not work for the given circumstances, so we need to do some work on this, but I would advocate keeping it the way it is for now.
I would second it.
This is the, from what I remember, there was actually a service that was for many different departments. It was just housed at the H, was the HR.
Right,
doing it,
correct, yeah.
But they would supply, any kind of,
You're probably right.
yeah, interrupting needs. They have somewhere else, yeah.
Do we have a motion?
I move that we recommend the human resources suggested budget of $83,758.
I'll second.
Vote, Sands?
I,
Aye.
Aye.
Same motion?
Second with discussion. I think I remember someone called in on this, thought it was almost, having some, languages out, and it wasn't a good idea. Just, expand, some, I think it was James Bailey called.
Yeah.
So this is just primarily the. What happened if we have some?
We'll have to, if there are other languages that we can't speak in-house, we'll have to use. But, a Google Translate or something like that, they are not ideal. 99% of the time, the language is Spanish. So at this point, it's providing.
I think that Bill's point, and to Chris's point too, that this stipend kind of covers the actual current need. Like if we want to reassess and have the best path forward, to see what our needs are as we progress, and that's something to do, but for now, this makes a lot of sense.
Anyone else? All in favor? Unanimous. Page 8, updated 225-25, and that is town clerk.
Okay, we went up slightly from. As we discussed, went from 162 to 163.8. So. Is there anything you want to highlight about the change?
Is it materials for the elections,
yeah,
Chris?
the pads for the meetings, is that?
It's the ads to check people into the meetings. Oh, our clerk is here and can update us on that.
So it's what they call the poll pads. It's for checking people in for annual town meeting and usually for all elections, to be honest. But the quote I got was that we bought ours in 2016. They're 9 years old and they will no longer be able to be used after 2025.
And when you
Is
say
this
pad,
an electronic type of
It's
thing?
an iPad. It's an iPad that sits on the stand and. Like, when you go to town meeting, it's the thing they look you up on.
Right.
Okay.
do we have a motion?
I move that we recommend the town clerk budget of $163,858.
Second.
Matt?
Votes?
Aye.
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 Same motion?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Page 9, conservation.
Okay, conservation is almost flat from last year. Total 47,555. We have a motion.
I wanted to ask a question regarding a note that I made during our discussion. Did I understand that 20,000 of this salary is coming from the wetlands funds?
Yes, so assuming that special article is approved at town meeting,
I see.
appropriate 20,000. And what we'll do is amend this budget to reduce this by 20,000.
Okay. I move that we recommend the conservation budget of $47,555.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Same motion?
Do you have a second? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous? Okay.
All right,
Page 10, planning board.
planning board, this is actually down 2% from last year, modest amount of $6,360. Do we have a motion?
I move that we recommend the planning board budget of $6,360.
Second,
All in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Same motion,
Second. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Page 11, zoning board of appeals.
Okay, this is a zero budget for this department.
I recommend that we approve the zoning boards of appeals budget of $0.
All
Aye.
second, all in favor?
Aye.
Oh,
Same motion.
I have recused myself?
All in favor?
Aye.
Page 12, the planning community development.
Zoning.
Okay, this budget's down about 5% from last year. Yeah, we made Richards that came up.
Was this planning?
Planning
Planning
community
community
development, page
development.
12.
I had a note about. What was it here? Maybe to go down from the 5,000, I'm trying to scoot contracted services down to 3.
Yeah, because, well, yeah,
Did that happen?
I also have a note that.
I have the same one, yeah.
The economic development, should be funded from downtown cultural grant.
Can somebody speak to this? I had a little note, I've forgotten.
what do I think?
What's, there's a few questions.
We had a few questions at the
Yeah.
same time, so could I just address the one question regarding the amount of line 56410 for contracted services? It looks like in fiscal year 24, that was $2,000. And we've had no use yet in fiscal year 25. I appreciate that the whole budget has gone down, but I don't see the need to more than double the budget unless you know something more that we're unaware of, Chris.
To more than double what?
Well, from fiscal year.
From
24.
fiscal year 24, it's instead of 2,000, it's now at 5,000, and we don't know why.
And we haven't used any of the 10.
And we haven't used any in fiscal year
The
25.
10 just hasn't been spent. It's encumbered to match a current grant, so the 10 will be spent. There are no current plans for the 5,000 proposed. For FY26.
Well, wasn't there some discussion, because we all seem to write down 3,000 here
Reduced, yeah.
to reduce it.
Yeah,
Be reduced.
yeah.
It could be
There was a
reduced.
Conversation last time.
And to what level do we think fiscal finance committee, we could reduce this budget?
And I have another comment. which
Let's
was-
finish this one.
Yeah,
And my question is, if we're going to reduce it, to what level do we want to reduce it?
my notes say 2,500 to half of it.
I'd go with that.
I'd say yes, 2,500.
I'd go yes, 2,500.
So we'll remove 25.
Well, is this the services that help us to get grants? That's,
It sometimes can. At this point, I don't have a definite use for it.
Well, then, it's a little bit, but why not?
Okay, do we have a motion?
Oh, I have one more,
Okay.
I have one more, which I have for the 20,000, and you have, for economic development, I have a note that, it could be funded from downtown cultural grant.
It's actually reduced
To
as
17.
proposed because we are already planning to fund some out of the cultural grant. So what you see is town manager recommended.
The 17, oh, I see, so that.
It's already accounting for grant
Okay.
funds coming in.
All right,
So, I recommend if you're okay to keep that line at 17,500.
Then I make a motion to change the budgeted line for contracted services, line 56410 to $2,500 instead of 5,000.
second,
Okay, I'll just highlight that rough numbers, then the total budget for this department would be down about 6% over last year. Make that point. All right.
So can we vote on that motion?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
aye,
And then I move that we recommend the budgeted amount of 169,195. Hopefully I did my math correct.
Okay.
Good.
Second,
Second, all right, all in favor?
Aye.
aye.
I think it's 68.
Same motion.
68.
So was I wrong?
All in favor?
Wait, are we checking the math?
We're checking the math.
That's correct.
169, 195.
Is that correct? I think it should be 168. If you subtract 171.
Yes, 168.
Is it 168?
Is it 168?
It's one, no, it's
Allison?
169.
We met
stand corrected.
169.
Okay, good math.
I thought I did.
Okay. Buildings and grounds.
Well,
We haven't voted.
Sorry.
They're here too.
Okay, all in favor?
Right.
Perfect. Page 13, buildings and grounds, revised 225-25.
Before we get to, and just something to think about for the future, I mean, so I also saw that the new growth for this year is down even less than anticipated, is that right?
So we're not even back on.
I know, but I guess, I just want, this is a budget where we are wanting to think about that, and, if we're- there was in the memo, it's that new growth is down.
Oh, I see.
Even, but we estimated 200,000, now it's at 50,000.
Yeah.
And this is something that we're always, maybe they're not related, to me,
I think
these,
they are.
Buildings and grounds and new growth are not related.
no, the planning and community development,
Oh,
is that related?
No.
No? Oh,
New growth is a revenue source. And we're
Okay.
looking at expending.
right, okay, all right,
planning and economic development can certainly help new growth in future years.
right, Right.
Maybe what you're, if I could take a stab at maybe what you're alluding to is the fact that our new growth
Is flat.
is a little bit flat, and it's not fixing some of the other budgets.
exactly.
Chris, what did you anticipate before we started new growth?
200,000.
And now we're down 50.
Yeah.
So what that means is, the only relationship that has is that as we move along, we haven't cut, well, you've cut $2,500. I won't minimize what we've cut, but eventually we're gonna,
Right.
so keep that in mind.
But I think her comment is very valid because you really have to understand the context of it.
And so we're just, as a process point, we're sort of deep into the weeds going through our department budgets, and we're not, as of yet, addressing the issues about how our.
The
budget
bigger
deficit
picture
is
issues,
fixed.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
All right, so we're at building and grounds.
As we talked about this, I think there were some areas you had made a suggestion that you thought.
After the Chris's new one.
Okay, so what I'm confused on, unless I've got the sheet wrong, is that the bottom line is still the same.
The bottom line is, we did this, right, we had buildings and grounds repairs, and we had contracted service for a total of 265.
Right.
And what we did is we put 200 in building repair and the balance in grounds. Because contracted services and buildings repair, ground repairs were kind of being used interchangeably. This way here, in future years, it'll give you a little measure of what's been spent.
Okay, I know at some point you had recommended a couple of things to be cut. It may have been in capital. that
Oh, I
was
see.
thinking of.
I finally finished.
Yeah, so Joe, question for you.
Yes.
So just for everyone's benefit, this budget, this line item in our budget, this includes, for example, let me make sure I get it right. This includes electricity, heating, hot water for an array of buildings
For all the town buildings.
on all our town, right?
Yes.
So this is capturing other departments'
Correct.
costs. So I know, I think we've gone back and forth historically as to how we track this in our budget, but if I were to suggest we consider where possible, where we have discrete billing, taking some of the sort of building expenses out of this line item or department and allocate it back to the actual departments and their respective buildings. What do you think of that?
And they take the bill processing and everything, that'd be great.
What we've discussed is
I'm not sure that,
there are other ways to track it. We could put a purchase order on a certain building or bill that certain building
You can do it
directly.
different ways, yeah.
We'll track it, but, there's
So, and
there's no reason to spread it around in 10 different departments.
So I thought
We
about
can
this.
track it separate.
It took me a few minutes to think about this, but
Yeah.
it was that way previously,
Right.
and it was brought together. So what happens is, for instance, let's say the library their electricity is down for whatever reason. But another building is up, now we have to have transfers. This allows them to dissipate that where it's needed as opposed to 30 transfers and you're guessing at each one. You don't know what electricity and oil are gonna be each year. So you're guessing, this is one guess as opposed to 13 buildings.
Yeah, that
I
makes,
think it's
that
more
makes,
manageable this
yeah.
way.
okay, that makes absolute sense, but the flip side of that is that when we're evaluating departments, we're looking at a bit of a, I'll use the word artificial number, because it's basically assuming they have no cost relating to the building that they're relying on.
So we talked about this last time where, we could put a suffix on the account and have like letter A be for town hall. And cut a purchase order under electricity for suffix A and track it that way. And then Madonna said, well, why don't we just do the old paper file system and have a folder for each? So we still should do that, so we know what the buildings are costing us. When I came here, half of the buildings were being paid for under highway, and the other half were being paid for under the buildings and grounds. So over the last couple of years, working with the county, we got all of the buildings and grounds. The other piece of the puzzle is we in the DPW kind of do the negotiating procurement for all the services for all the buildings, whether it's electricity, oil, we work with virtual planning and things like that. So we secure the best price for the town as we can.
Okay, that all makes perfect sense, and I don't want to create a huge amount of administrative work, but at the same time, as we have to make very difficult decisions as to how we prioritize what we spend our money on. The cost of maintaining, heating,
Ensuring.
insuring is a great point, particularly these days. It's, I think our decision-making is a bit, is not, well, let me say that differently. Again, it's a bit of an artificial assessment that we're making on each of the departments when we don't have that information allocated to that department.
We can track it. We will track it and.
So I presume that, for example, our insurance costs for our fire department are probably much higher than they'd be for the library.
We can go through those if that's the type of strategic decision making you want to look at, we can prepare that for you.
Yeah, and I would say it only would make sense where we have like discrete billing on that. I don't want you to allocate cleaning fluid, in some ridiculous way, but if you have, if our insurance statements say insurance for the fire department, then let's have the benefit of that information. As well as the utility bills, et cetera.
I have one question, and that's on the water sewer line. I see the numbers being a little bit out of order here. I think the level funded budget request was at 1,313, and then town manager 32,500. And I don't know whether it's a typo
Must be a
or
typo.
something.
Yeah, it was a typo.
It was a typo.
It was a typo.
Okay,
The ask.
okay, there was maybe the figure 3 was omitted.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay. Can I have just a note and I'm sorry I didn't write down the answer, but we're going from a $5,000 intern to a $29,000 intern. Can someone remind me what that?
2 to 3
There are
college.
2 to 3 college kids that assist with
Oh, right.
so I think it's the number of interns that's been increased.
Joe, do you mind giving a little recap on exactly what the intern program entails?
So the intern, basically, right now, we currently have one intern from the high school with us, half days as a learning thing, but also to kind of help to get it work done. The money that's in there this year is, we had a hard time, and the select board could probably tell you about keeping up with the mowings and stuff like that. So that money is to seek out 2 to 3 18-plus-year-old students to help us in the summer. For summer help, so Memorial Day timeframe to Labor Day timeframe. And basically give them a weed eater, give them a mower, and help us keep after the parks and cemeteries.
So it's about 8,000 per mower,
Yeah.
per intern.
Yeah.
Do you think in this, recognizing that we have cuts to make, do you think since right now you've one, could we try two for this summer and then build it more
I'm
slowly?
all for you prioritizing and doing whatever, you know. I can speak loudly about prioritizing, that's something we don't do here. So wherever this fits in your priority, feel free to cut it.
So if we were looking at interns and instead of 3, wanting 2, what would be the cost?
What's that, in the intern?
Right, 2 instead of 3.
I'm gonna work with whatever you give me, it's just that, you know, we're not gonna get everything done, that's all. And again, I'm not trying to put it on your shoulders, I'm like, we'll work with whatever you give us.
I guess my question is more because I believe that the answer to the question we just had was that this is for 3 interns.
3.
And my question to you is how much funding do you think would be necessary for 2 interns?
2/3 of that.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And when you say the 5,000, it's a little that it made it difficult to even get one person? Because currently you're 5.
Yeah, so we actually go over, and that's a high school intern, so it pays
Right,
less.
I see, right. I mean,
So if I could just say one thing, the one thing that I know over a few years that I've been sitting here, that one of the things I receive the most emails on is like, whether it's weather or whatever happens, but when certain places don't get mowed. And there's a tonic library, a bunch of different places, and I know with like vacation times and all that stuff, and interns and summer labor. For a young man that can, a young person that could, you know, has all the energy, it's. This is probably the biggest bargaining line that we have as far as dollar for labor, you know, in my opinion.
To Eric's point, you know, it's our fiscal year ends on June 30th, so. The staff is tasked with using their vacation up before then, so you can imagine what June looks like. Then they start July 1 with a whole set of brand new vacation time. And July and August are vacation time. So our 6-man highway department can be down to 2 people.
Yeah, it's a good point.
If you have all 6 hired.
Right.
You may have a 5-man department.
And that's what I do now, we have 1 missing.
I'm just curious with the. Like colleges or high school kids, do they have any training and do we have to have insurance out on that?
But you can't.
There's an age
You can't
There's an
make
age
someone
requirement
take
with our insurance company that they have to be 18 and older to run power equipment. So we've run this by the insurance company and all. The gentleman we have in high school, until his recent birthday, but he can run a weed eater and we train on, we do the safety stuff.
I say, this is one of the line items where we're most affected by fate, right, in terms of. You know, you have a line item in here about, you know, equipment and maintenance repairs, 150,000. 175,000 now. You have, if I'm reading that right.
Are you looking
No.
at the revised?
No, I'm looking at the, sorry, the small print.
And equipment maintenance and repairs is $7,500 recommended by the town manager.
Right, okay.
So that replaces about 1 motor on a mower.
Yes, okay. No, I was looking at the wrong line on it. But the buildings repairs. That's the new line item, that's 215. Right?
So before, right, that was, if you look at the line above that, the one that's eliminated buildings and ground repairs. $100,000 last year was approved. Through December 31st, I spent 126.
Right.
For half the year.
Right, and so then I was looking at the year before that, your total cost was 89,000.
Right.
So that's what I was trying to express. So just for everyone's benefit. We're putting in a little bit of cushion in there, if you don't need that money, you'll either use it for something where you have an overage. Or it's not spent and it runs through free cash.
And that's the intention this year is, you can see our snow removal, line items are high.
Yeah.
And we're probably not done yet, so any monies, when you start the balancing act between the two budgets, you'll shift it over and put it in the budget this year, but it will still reflect how much we spent, so next year you can see that. You know, Chris is asking that we try to cover it all, we're gonna try.
You know, you've referred to a lot of significant savings, from, rolling out LED lighting.
That's in this highway budget.
Okay, in the highway budget, but here in our electricity line here. We look back to fiscal 24 actual, that's 103,000 versus budgeted 128,000.
Yeah.
Anything you want to highlight there? About why we're not, why that's up?
Why what? Why it's up?
Electricity, yeah, sorry.
Just the rate we pay. We actually scored a pretty good rate last year, right? The town has that program where we have a rate, we actually scored a better rate than that.
All right, so we just, if we broke out usage versus the rates, we'd probably do better on usage than where the rates have gone up significantly.
Yeah, but we, in the FY25, we actually secured some nice rates, better than most of us are paying personally.
Right,
So again, that could swing the other way too.
okay.
I will say I'm convinced and I'm willing to make a motion if that.
Please do.
I'll make a motion that we recommend the building and grounds budget of 107,265. Oh, no, I'm sorry, that's the increase, I'm sorry. And that was.
Okay, you got a lot to work with.
Yeah, right, 1,111,103.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Same motion?
Discussion?
Close. Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Page 14, police department.
Oh.
Okay. Okay, what I'll just, again, just for the, maybe the broader group that's here, is the net increase on the budget is just 2.5%, which again, is pretty modest. And is about as small as you can get, given inflation and given what we're maintaining existing levels of service.
And Phil, this is not aimed at the police, but to your point about pulling electricity all out, health insurance isn't in any of these either.
No, that's a very good point too, yeah, no, right.
I make a motion that we recommend the police department budget of $2,192,540.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Same motion?
Second with discussion.
Discussion?
I'm just not sure why there's nothing on the co-responder.
Co-responder is a grant.
Yeah, that's right.
That's correct, yeah, about approximately a year and a half ago, I applied for the grant, we got the grant to cover 100% of that program. So I didn't need to put it into the budget.
Which we should
Any other
want to
questions?
recommend 54,200.
All in favor?
Aye.
Fire department. Page 15.
Fire department again,
Very small. increase.
very small increase, 1.4%. With the caveat that, I don't know, is Keith here?
Keith is here.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I think what has come up a few times and what you brought up. Is going forward, some of our reliance on volunteerism. May have to be in place with some additional staffing, but maybe you could speak to that.
Used the example in the last meeting that 10 years ago, the average number of volunteer members that responded to every incident was between 6 and 12. Last year, it's been steadily decreasing. Last year it was 1 to 3. And it's been steady for that number at least the last 5 years. We're getting 1 to 3 responders. Right now, I can only guarantee you one member will respond 24/7. That's the one full timer we have on duty. Between the hours of 10 and 6, there's either 1 or 2 on volunteer members who work on a duty crew, so they staff either the station or respond from home between those hours.
You also cited a statistic, and maybe if I wrote it correctly, that in 2015, there were 43 volunteers and now there's 14. Okay,
Correct, we have a total of 17 volunteer members, where 10 years ago there was 42. Since I started, we've taken, I would say, maybe 5 to 6 applications. We have 2 interns from the school. One of them has become a active member. He's still an intern, but once they graduate, he'll be an active member. And we have one other person who is also active, but out of the 5 applications, we really only had 3 people come on. One's not really.
Can you count on like other towns to help you out in a?
Unfortunately, every town that surrounds us is in the same position. Monterey and Egremont are looking at hiring full-time staffing for their departments because they're in the same issue that we're in. The numbers are going down everywhere. It's not a local problem, it's nationwide.
Oh, and last time you were, I just have a little note, there was something about FEMA. Were we going to get some, or you had applied for grants or?
The opportunity is that we could apply for a grant for staffing. And they would provide 100% of the funding for 3 years. And then after 3 years, the town would have to take over the staffing.
Is that, I mean, isn't FEMA in danger right now? We don't know, right?
I can't really speak too much about that, but I believe that public safety is gonna be a top priority, or that wouldn't be an issue, but again, I don't. We don't ask you to handicap that.
and can I just, I think, ask a question, so the Housatonic Fire Station, is that staffed, or how does that work?
It's not staffed full-time. There, if you include myself, there's 4 members of the department who live in Housatonic that respond out of that station.
So if there's a call that comes in from Housatonic, you go to the Housatonic station, or?
I would go directly to the scene.
Right, oh,
And
okay.
depending on the incident, the deputy chief who's here as well, he lives in Housatonic. He would either go to the station and ride on the apparatus, or he would go to the scene.
Oh, okay, oh, so you guys are right nearby me,
Yeah.
okay,
The
excellent.
other
good to
issue
know.
that we have is the other 2 members who are staffed out of Housatonic are full-time members. So if one of them was at the station in Great Barrington, we would lose that one person.
Oh.
So again, just to repeat this point, I'm sorry that, we have a 1.4% increase in your budget here, but that's. I think what I'm just trying to highlight is that as we look forward, that number is gonna change.
We talked about not sustainable, and usually we talk about spending money. This is the opposite. Not spending money on this isn't sustainable, right?
Okay, make a motion. I move that we recommend the fire department budget of $909,669.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Same motion?
Yes. Discussion,
I'm sorry.
all in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Page 16, emergency management.
This budget is 0% change from last year. Do we have?
I move that we recommend the emergency management budget of $24,461.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Same motion?
Yeah. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Page 17, the updated pages of 22625 building inspector.
All right, so there's a major change there. We can walk this through next.
The major reduction in our budget here because the town of Stockbridge would be the lead town for the 5-town building department. Allows take on the bulk of the salary and insurance issues. And what we see here is an increase in the contracted services that we have to pay into Stockbridge. Our charges, but overall, it's very advantageous to the town of Barrington. The level of service will stay the same. We'll still have the same staffing here as we do now. You won't see any difference if you're going for a permanent
And Chris, will this rotate or will Stockbridge continue this? Because obviously if there's
We don't
cost
foresee a
associated-
rotation, no.
So we will just be contracting with town of Stockbridge and they will carry their higher costs happily.
We anticipate this arrangement to continue.
That one might be an exaggeration.
Well, I'm like just absolutely stunned by that, you know, that they agreed to that. And that also that we had such a much higher cost because we were the lead here.
We were also, a fifth town joined the service and because the inspectors were able to cover that now without adding staff.
Okay, so we
It
have some
actually brings revenue
economics.
in without cost.
So I move that we recommend the revised building inspector budget of 237,400.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Same motion?
Second, is there discussion?
Discussion.
This church, what happened to Stockbridge for some unknown reason, they perform,
If you're not what?
able to perform their duties or whatever.
Well, we would revisit, there's a 5-town intermunicipal agreement, we would have to, town managers of each town would have to revisit that and figure out who can take on the responsibility.
So it hasn't been done, yet. You don't already have someone else in place for time. Stockbridge.
Stockbridge is doing it for FY20, for the coming fiscal year, Stockbridge is doing it. Beyond that, we assume Stockbridge will do it, if not, there's a provision that they have to notice each other if something's going to change. So we have plenty of time to work on it, but the fingers crossed it into.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Animal
Control officer is going,
18.
sorry, it's going from, animal control officer is going from $11,000 to $12,000. We have a motion.
I'll make a motion that we recommend the animal control offer budget of $12,000.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Same motion?
Second,
Discussion.
who, this now the, without Shep, and then he retired.
The function will be, done through the police department.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Page 19, DPW highway, updated 225-25, and there are 2 pages. Now. Still in very small.
Yeah.
Sorry, we didn't make the fund, we should get it up. So, as the very last time you spoke with Joe, you recommended putting the transfer station costs in a different area, so you could see how that operates as a division of itself. So you see costs allocated that were in the highway budget over the transfer station budget.
Yes.
That's the reduction.
So if we add the two together. We're about 3,000 higher.
3,000 higher because there's a cost to operate the. Thank you, the kiosk.
All right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the transfer
yes,
station. That's the word.
I move that we recommend the transfer station budget of $156,921.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Same motion?
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Now the DPW highway.
Did we have any questions here?
Which one?
Here,
I think so.
Which page is it?
We're on page 19, the second one in
Oh, the
19.
second one. Right.
you know, we had a number of conversations.
We had a robust discussion
Yeah, about ways to spend money going forward, but, do we have a motion?
I move that we recommend the highway budget of $1,830,539.
Second.
All in favor, aye.
Same motion?
Discussion?
The only discussion I want to make is to point out, I think this is where we were talking about the funds for all the streetlight LED replacements and that significant drop in the cost there, which is beneficial. So I just wanted to point that out one more time.
Anyone else? All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Page 20, the health department.
This budget is up like 0.5% from last year. Now, is this where we need to discuss the request for additional monies for testing for Houstonic water? No, I'm not.
It was asked.
I think that was asked by the board, right? Yeah.
No, it was asked by a board member. I don't
Board
know if it was
member,
asked by a
right,
board.
Yeah, it was requested by a member of the Board of Health.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would only deal with that if we got, going to help request for that.
Okay.
And we're also gonna look whether, I think, Chris, whether the money that we got from the state.
The money we got from the state cannot be used for.
Cannot be.
Cannot be used.
So,
Unfortunate.
yeah.
So could that, just to talk it out a little bit, that request, if the Board of Health was to come before the Finance Committee, that could be something discussed for the,
On the 25th.
on the 25th, and or the reserve fund. Possibly.
There's not a lot of reserve fund, so they would be much better off coming with, with minutes on the 25th, because we'll be meeting again clearly,
Yes.
and there's no reason we can't discuss it then.
Okay, I agree.
I move that we recommend the health department budget of $147,246.
Second,
I just will note that that's 0.5% increase from last year.
All in favor?
and
Same motion?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Page 21 is community services, which, so here's my question on this, has been zero for 2-3 years, can we just? Kind of rip this page
I will
up?
support that, yeah.
So let's just move over this,
Are we moving at all? But it doesn't matter, it's $0, right?
yeah, zero. And we zero last year, what's that?
I'll remove this next year.
Okay.
All right, you take a few pennies out of your budget, you won't need paper. Page 22, council on aging.
Council on Aging, that budget is actually down 1.2% from last year.
But we had a very good conversation with the director, and she had stated that the level funded budget request she made for activities, that's line item 53810 at 7,176 was an acceptable level for her.
that's right.
And so I would move that we change the budget to, on that line, to $7,176.
Second,
Oh,
Mr. Lang.
I'm speaking about the activities line 53810.
The director's online.
John, are we
Hello, Joan.
correct?
Hi.
Joan, the question was the activities line. We thought you said last time you were with that $7,100.
Yes, I agree with that. I'm still fine with that reduction in our activities level.
Do I have any, shall we take a
I
roll
second
call
it.
on that? Did we seconded?
Yeah, so
Aye.
all in favor of going to 7,176 for that line?
My math is not that
Yeah,
good.
yeah, that's.
And Allison, can you help me change the total budget line appropriately?
$42,767.
Yes.
I move that we recommend the Council on Age's budget of $242,767.
767.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Same motion?
Second. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous.
Thank you, Joe.
Page 23, Veterans Affairs.
Hi, everybody.
All right.
Hi.
District Directors here, Tom, if you have any questions on the last three lines of this organization.
Roger that. So let's start with the line item 54300.
Yes.
Supplies. That money pays for the Memorial Day flags that we place at all the veterans' graves throughout the town, including Housatonic. And at some point prior to me being director, there was an agreement that we also take care of Mount Washington, which is like 100 flags. The invoice is turned into me yearly, and I submit the invoice to the Executive Office of Veteran Services in Boston. The next fiscal year, you will get 75% of that back. Right, so it looks like, and I believe that last year's invoice was like 4781. So it's a little highball depending on how much flags are going for. The next line item is veterans benefits. So in a nutshell, let me break this down real quick to you about veterans benefits. The Commonwealth of Massachusetts requires each town, depending on population and districts, such as mine, I have 12 towns, to have a veteran service officer to provide support to our veterans. So the Commonwealth has a Chapter 115 program that in Great Barrington, right now, I have 4 clients that the town pays them a check depending on their needs that I assess monthly. So as of fiscal year 2025, I turned in the warrant for March today to the wonderful ladies in the office. They have submitted to my veterans from July 2024 to present day, March 2025, $42,071.49. That helps widows, widowers, veterans, children under 25 still in school, stay in the homes and that they have lived in. And maybe let's say the veteran passed away and the widow is still there. If it wasn't for this program, they probably wouldn't be your neighbors anymore. But know this, again, the next fiscal year for the Chapter 115 program, the Commonwealth pays you back 75% of that. Right, so if this was to be the end of the fiscal year, you guys would get, the town would get back 31,000. My district so far this year has given out almost 200,000 to the 12 towns. So it's a wonderful program. We're the only state that has this program. And it was initiated in 1869 to help the members of the Civil War adjust, besides the federal side. So this is just the Commonwealth, right? So your line item there. We put it up because it's very fluid. And I'm gonna give you an example. We don't have a crystal ball when we're gonna leave this earth and go to the next. If our veterans, if our neighbors don't have the assets to have a funeral, be buried, cremated, etc., the state pays. But initially it comes from the town. So the funeral home calls me, Joe or Roy, right? Trinity and Stevens or Roy call me, hey, I've got a veteran, he has no assets. I do all the paperwork. I submit the warrant to the town. And the town pays up to $4,000 to the funeral home to bury that veteran. And when I mean no assets, I mean no assets. So with that being said, again, it's reimbursable the next fiscal year, but we're taking that money out of this year's fiscal year budget, this fiscal year. From mid-December to mid-January, Great Barrington had 3 veterans pass away that had no assets, $12,000 right off the bat to honor that veteran by laying him to rest the way that he or she should have been, correct? So that's why it's a little bit high.
And if you go back in years, and again, why it's high is because my office, my outreach has improved. And I think at the beginning of the year, I had 8 clients in Great Barrington. I'm down to 4, a couple passed away, and a couple I was able to remove off of the state programs and fund them through the federal side, the VA side, which gives them actually more money because I'm accredited through the VA to help with their claims. All good stuff. So that's where the 71 is. Can I touch on the last line item ending in 701?
Sure.
Sure, so the 63,515, I actually have some good news for you. So that number is based on an apportionment for each town. That number pays for me and my department and my pens and my computer and my travel and my training and my fees and my dues. And the apportionment for Great Barrington out of my 12 towns is the highest because you have the most population. So we had come up with 63,515. It is actually your apportionment due on 1 July 2025 for the next fiscal year is $56,241.12. So right there, you do some good news, right? You got a couple bucks that you guys can play with.
Say that again, 56 what?
56,241.12. And Ally, could you help with the total budget on that? Because out of my 3 line items. So with that being said, let me talk to you about the apportionment. Great Barrington has the most population. It is based on the 2020 census. So in 2030, when the feds do their census again, that is why it is so important that we complete the census. So Mount Washington has 104 residents. Right, so their apportionment is about $1,800, but they get the same their veterans and families get the same service from me. Right, so does that kind of break it down for you guys? In a nutshell, it's a lot, and if you guys have any questions, fire away. Can I with permission, can I touch base on the budgets for the Legion and the VFW?
Oh, yeah.
Please, that would be my question.
Not sure why they're on my line items, because they have nothing to do with my department. But they, on Great Barrington, they're on my line items for my final dollar amount. You have constituents and community members that love their VFW and they love their Legion. I believe that you officials should take a good look at what goes on. I can recall, I live in Egremont, I don't live in Great Barrington, but I believe that the ambulance company several years ago, you guys went through a process of inspecting every Band-Aid to give them, right? They weren't a town entity. They're privately funded. John, correct me if I'm wrong. So it was an audit. And I believe in transparency. And I know that if you ask the leadership of those 2 places, they should be able to show what they're doing for the veterans in your community. And if they can't, then act accordingly. It's not gonna make me a great guy in front of my veterans by saying that, right? So there's a risk that I'm taking. It's taken me almost 2.5 years to get the trust of my veterans that I have now. So I'm not taking those 2 line items lightly at all. And I think in comparables to the other towns in Massachusetts, I think you need to look at that, at what happens. I think you need to open books and determine what is right and what is wrong. That's all I have to say for those 2 line items. I just wanted to lay it on the professional line there and make you guys aware that that does not affect my bottom line budget. And I understand you're looking to cut money. And if there's an issue with those and you're looking to cut money, I would love for it to come to my bottom line in case we have added chapter 115 clients or added deaths. Right now, there's a buffer there. And I know that if you decide to cut money for them and give it to me, that you can guarantee that it's gonna go directly to the benefits to the veterans in your community to help them on a daily, if not weekly basis. All right?
Well,
couple of things.
Yes.
Thank you. This has been incredibly helpful. We haven't, speaking for just my time in the committee, we've never had such a comprehensive description of what the composition of this line item, so of this department or this budget item. So I really appreciate that.
Cool, you're welcome.
Thank you.
So just for those of us who are less fully informed, you know, what the activities for the VFW and the American Legion, how long of that, can you speak to how long of those have been in existence in terms of their funding from the town?
I cannot.
Okay.
I can tell you that
There are members of the VFW here.
1954.
1954.
Right, so there you go. So, again, nothing to do with my line items. I am a member of the American Legion. I'm an honorary member, lifetime member of the VBA. And I support those posts. They're great for the community. So when you look to cut the budget, yeah, you know, it's tough. I can throw the veteran word out there. No one wants to vote down a veteran, right? And that's America. We are proud, we are patriotic, and no one wants to be known as the elected official that cut veteran stuff.
So we never have, and the veterans always have come to us ahead of time if they wanted more money and we approved it. That's never been an issue here.
For the VFW and stuff.
For the VFW.
Yeah, cool. Whatever you guys do with those two line items is not on my department, and you guys have my blessing.
One last question for
Yes.
me is, can you repeat your name?
Yes, Thomas Beasley.
Thomas Beasley, and how do people who may need your assistance generally find you?
Outstanding question. So a word of mouth, huge. I mean, I'm always at one of the senior centers in my district. I'm always at one of the town halls. My office is actually in Great Barrington at 491 Main Street, right across from Duncan. Each one of my 12 websites, if you click on the departments tab and scroll alphabetically to veterans, that is my information also. I've made great contacts in the town halls, so if you have a new resident that comes in and is wondering about his property tax exemption for the new HERO Act or his excise tax exemption for the HERO Act, and they go into the clerk, Josh or Kathy Couch is gonna direct them directly to me, right? So there's the wonderful aspect of being a rural community, right? Is the network. And that's part of the hardest thing, Philip, is outreach. I can't stress that enough, because we, as a community, need to know who our neighbors are, make sure that they're safe and okay, and act in a process where, are you okay? Or, you know, was your husband a veteran? Right? Those questions open the doors for me to go either to their house or for them to come to my office.
And maybe Allison's for you. So these reimbursements that we get, that the town benefits from, based upon the state and the federal reimbursements, so they do you track them separately, or do they just go into the free cash?
Oh, yes, they go separately. They're included in the state aid.
Okay.
And just remember, we're full year behind.
Full fiscal year behind.
Okay, but it's in that sort of just box of state aid. You know, this is one of those, again, I'm very good at adding work for you, but this is one of those budget items where it would always be just very helpful to see, well, that if we're spending quote unquote 176,000, but at some future point, we're getting a big chunk of that back.
It has a separate line, so I could give that information.
Okay, great, thank you.
Great.
Thank you. That's helpful.
I don't know if you want to hear from me. We always want to hear from you.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Just
much.
state your name for the record. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Want to thank both boards for hearing us tonight. My name is Steve Blackwell. I'm the commander of the VFW in Great Barrington.
And I'm Jim Ketchum.
Jim Ketchum, he's my junior vice. We're here to see about our request for funding that we have gotten in the past years. They brought a sheet of our bills, if anybody wants to see them. I know, we are getting 1,800 a month. We spend over 3,000 a month, which we do with our parties and this and that and our bar there. We work hard at keeping the place up to date, decent, beautiful, and I'm sure everybody been there one time or another, I hope. To enjoy it, so that's what I'm here for. And I don't know if that was on Tom's line.
No,
No.
this is,
Okay, this is from the Great Barrington VFW. I don't know what his other two lines were, that the American Legion and whatever the other line was, they're in Housatonic.
first one, just wanted to say one.
But just so everybody knows, line 52710, which says American Legion lease,
Yes,
that covers the Housatonic American Legion and the Housatonic VFW Adam Buds Post. The second line, 52715 VFW lease, is the lease that Steve's talking about now for the Great Barrington VFW post, the Medolo post.
So the DFW on Housatonic is $23,000. Is that right, Chris?
That's correct.
That's the Legion plus VFW for Housatonic.
Okay. So our budget last year was 21,600. And this year it's been cut down to $12,912.
We don't cut anything, that's a recommendation.
So that's my recommendation to the board. I had no backing information. And so, without that, I couldn't see, supporting the level of funding. So what we did was taking the FY25 overall budget for this entire Veterans Affairs Department. I kept that level, but costs had to shift to those lines that you heard Tom talk about. So funds have come out of the Great Barrington VFW lease line and shifted to those lines that you heard Tom talk about. That's what that reduction is here. This is the first I've heard from the Great Barrington Medolo post, and the first you've heard. But that was my
That's the first we heard of Chris.
Can I ask a question? So, right now you've spent, or through the end of December, you spent about 11,000. Do you, how much did you spend last year? What is the expenditure of your budget? So the actuals?
Yeah, that you had given us.
So that's on this sheet.
Ellie, we just send them effectively.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the budget line is for the lease of the VFW, right?
That's-
Which was it 1,800 a month?
Oh, it's
Did you just say?
Yeah.
And didn't you say that was 1,800
Yeah.
a month?
Our electric bill last month was 2,000 for
Right.
heating and electric.
So let me ask this question, which may make things move a little faster. And right now, let's talk about the Great Barrington, the 52715, the VFW lease. It was 30,000 in town meeting vote in for FY25. Is that what you would like it to be again?
If we can bring it out up to 30,000, yes.
And if not, we could stay with what we got last year.
Well, that's what you got last year.
It was.
Yes, you get
Okay.
$100,000.
Oh, 18, that's right, I got it here. I'm sorry, yes.
What if we just did it equal, 23 each?
Chris, I've got paperwork here for you if you want to see our budgets and all that.
Great, can you leave that with me?
Yeah, that'd be helpful. Again, just. No, we're not we're not. Part of this is just us getting a better sense of how the money's spent.
Yes.
There's no judgment in that, we don't, some of us just don't know, yeah.
Well, I'm just saying 1,800, our bill for electricity was 2,000,
Yeah, it was a cold winter.
but that doesn't count for.
Last month.
Now you're with the VFW here in town, right? On
Yeah.
South Street.
Yes.
Is there anybody here from the American Legion that can speak about there's two places in Housatonic?
Yes.
But that happened to be level funded.
It's the same number. Yeah,
Yeah, that's level funded.
Yeah.
23,000.
so it's really this one.
But So, up to the finance.
Our utilities and insurance or maintenance run approximately $3,100 a month. Our insurance licensing permits another $1,000 a month, so that's over $4,000. And we're coming up with that by using our post to the people who want to come in.
Can I ask you something?
Yeah.
So, the amount of funding you get from Great Barrington doesn't cover your costs, obviously, right? So how do you guys fund the rest of it? Is it from the federal?
No, we rent our properties out for parties.
So you would rent it out
Yeah,
for?
Graduation parties or,
funerals,
Yeah.
outside, and then we do a lot of community things. Last year, we had the big Memorial Day picnic there,
don't you do car shows as well?
and the car shows are there. Pee Wee football, they try out under the lights out there, many.
So these special events basically help you to.
Yeah, but
To finance the rest of it.
to ensure our membership, we have to show, the state and federal
Mhm.
that what we do for our community.
Right,
These are
right.
things that we do to give back try to give back as much
Mhm.
as we can,
Okay,
so.
thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, so whatever, materials that you have, that'll be great then.
Okay, I think Chris.
And then Chris can work with that. Yeah.
Okay, so do we have a motion?
Well, I was looking at the amount that was saved through the line that Tom was talking to us about. That was about $7,274, and adding that to the 12,914 that we have currently funded for the VFW lease comes to 20,188, which is very close to what the normal yearly
Just give me 30,000 a year.
lease was.
Yeah, the fiscal
The
24.
20, but he said it's 1,800 a month, which is 21,600 a year for the lease,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So that at least would be to me the bare minimum that we would raise it to. Any other discussions about?
Seemed to me that their request was 30,000, that's what we budgeted last year. And
That's what we budgeted last year, right?
I don't think we've even received a formal request this year.
Well, and again, I go back to that Rose, our bookkeeper, she just submits to, I don't know, here, and we get our check. And
I think the idea was that the vote in FY25 was 30. And it was just assumed that that should stay the same, but without any detail or specific.
Right.
I couldn't justify. it.
Right.
So FY24 vote was 21,600, that corresponds to the 1,800 a month that was discussed. 21,600 corresponds to 1,800 a month.
And it is still.
What Rich was just talking about was taking the savings from the line below, putting it up top, increasing it.
Right,
Great
so-
things to do.
Sorry, the 21,000 a year is just the 1,800 a month for the lease, but
Yes.
you're saying as a practical matter, you need additional funds.
no, we want the 30,000.
It just.
Yeah, you want the lease plus some additional funds.
Yeah.
Yes,
I was getting into it, all right,
Okay,
yeah,
make me nervous.
I'm sorry, that's not my intent.
So can I think it's appropriate for me to make a motion that we recommend that line 52715 be increased to 30,000. And because of Tom's talk to us today, it seems that I could also say that that motion would include 57701 to be amended to 56,241.
And 12 cents. Yes.
And well, I'm gonna forget.
We got a balance.
Yeah, yeah.
242, okay, there you go. Ally, can you help us with the math for the full number?
186,242.
186,242?
Correct.
So I move that we recommend the Veterans Affairs budget of $186,242.
Second,
Any
Aye.
aye? So,
I guess that was not very good, motions, because I did them all at once.
I got it.
So can we just say
Yeah, I
that
think
it's a
that's okay,
one
yeah.
complete motion and it's been seconded, so all in favor? Aye, okay,
186.
186, 242.
Same motion?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you. Board.
Thank you.
Yeah, he got my brother died in January and he got the veterans. And
Okay, we are turning to the library budget, page 24.
It seems it was a frugal budget.
It was a frugal budget. Yeah, I'm just gonna make a comment that, you know, we still have a big deficit to fill. I think it was a very helpful discussion on the Veterans Affairs budget that really sort of filled in some gaps in our understanding of where that money went. It's also, this, speaking for myself, it's probably not the place where we could be cutting. On the library side, you know, as we have a problem when we add up all these numbers for all the departments, we have a gap to fill, we have a deficit. So I'd like to consider some cutbacks on the library budget. I don't want to express any opinions on sort of how that would happen. I don't feel I'm in a position to do that, but you know, when we get to the wants and needs discussion, you know, at that, I after a lot of thought on this point, I come to this department as being one area where we might cut back a bit. I know that's will be a controversial point or many differing opinions, but I want to initiate that discussion.
Could I ask a general question? I think that when you were making your presentation at our last meeting, you mentioned that there was a certain required amount of spending. And I'd love it if you could remind us what that required amount of spending would be.
Yeah, it's a little bit,
I know it can be complicated.
before you start, I'd like to, because all the other budgets started with this. Sharon Shalo, Chair of the Library Trustees, so I'd like to start, Dawn is going to explain the ins and outs, but I'd like to start by noting that this budget increase is 1.31% already. We're already taking quite a cut to programs and services. So Dawn, mayors and marks.
So there's two state requirements. There's a lot of state requirements that we have to meet, but there are two that are financial. One is called the municipal appropriation requirement. And what that rule states, in a nutshell, is that the town appropriation for the library has to increase 2.5% over the average of the past 3 years. Okay, and if you have more questions about this, you can ask me. It's been a big learning curve for me too, coming from a different state. Or you can look on the NBLC website. This budget covers that. But eventually we'll catch up. You know what I mean? Eventually, especially as salaries go up, we'll catch up with those the 3-year average. And the intention of that is to make sure that libraries are not disproportionately cut from town budgets.
Can I ask you something? And
But she just had that second number you were gonna give us. Could we just get that second number
There's
first?
a second number is called the materials expenditure requirement. We call it the MER. And what that is that based on the population of your library, you're required to spend a certain amount of your total appropriated budget on things that circulate. In other words, we can't take $200,000 and spend it on, circus clowns, okay? It has to be books and things that you guys can all take home.
Including the e-services and all
Yes,
that.
you know, that counts. So some things count for it, some things do not. And in our budget, those things are covered in non-print subscriptions, although we do have some subscriptions that do not qualify. And books and ebooks. So those three lines have to meet 19% of our entire budget. This does do that. And just as a note, these two requirements are necessary for the town, not the library, the town to be certified by MBLC, which means that everybody who lives in Barrington is a certified library user. You can use Springfield Library, you can use East Falmouth, because Great Barrington is certified.
So, go ahead.
I just wanted to ask, the first number you mentioned, so if you do not meet the requirements, which is, you know, your budget doesn't meet the 2.5%, what does it mean for you in practical terms?
What it means is we would have to, it's for the town, right, it's the certification. These things are required for town certification.
You mean both are just to certify the town in order for residents of Great Barrington to be able to access other libraries.
Right, everybody in the state who has a library card, they are coded in the system. They're either certified or non-certified. So right now, everybody who lives in Great Barrington is coded as certified. And people who do not, for example, in Alfred, they are coded as uncertified.
And it really, all what it does, it gives you access to libraries in the state of Massachusetts, in other towns.
Well,
or anything else?
There are, I think, 340 something, I had this information. 98% of towns in Massachusetts are certified.
No, I understand that, but I'm just
Right.
saying, like, I'm trying, what it means.
Okay,
Really, what is the ultimate objective of
I
this
think
process?
you have to look at how the statewide library system is constructed in Massachusetts. And it's founded on, and undergirded by resource sharing. And that in good faith, towns participate to the best of their ability in helping to populate all of the resources available in our Commonwealth. And so it's not just being able to walk into a library, but it's being able to take advantage of the various resources so that we're not siloed and only able to take advantage of what our town can provide the residents. So it's being part of the statewide system.
I'm sorry, I'm still not really getting
So
the
for
answer. to
example,
what I'm
here's an
looking for.
example.
Yeah.
Our patrons
Yes,
import, now I don't remember the exact number, but I think it's 14 or 15,000 items from other libraries each year. But we only export 11,000. So you could look at it in that's kind of a bargain for Great Barrington. So we're borrowing 15,000 items from Springfield and North Adams. And they're coming here for our townspeople to use. But we're sending out several thousand less than.
so are you talking about people actually borrowing books or ebooks? Or
Yeah, we get deliveries every day.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
Would that stop if we weren't certified?
yeah, I don't believe that we would be able to be a member of CW Mars if we were not certified. Some libraries will not circulate to non-certified towns, like Springfield won't send anything for a patron if they're not certified.
And would that be part of the CW Mars system or?
Yeah, CW Mars is kind of like our regional group of libraries. But there are several other libraries in Massachusetts and they all
Besides- I
cooperate.
see, okay.
So we
okay.
can get things from outside. of
Okay,
CW.
understood.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
It's a very robust system. So, I mean, I know that
I mean,
I
using
borrow
it like
things
that.
from university libraries, from, you know, Boston Public Library. I mean, a lot of people, we have only a limited capacity for purchasing things, but as you're saying, you kind of have an unlimited capacity of what you want to read through the library system. Is there any way for you to give us a figure related to your budget for fulfilling this certified, fulfilling these two things? I know you said, you made a statement that this budget fulfills those things.
Right.
By how much more, or is it, if
Um,
we're trying to get as close as we can to the requirements of being certified? Do you understand my question?
The MER is almost exactly on the money.
And that involves what
That's the
lines?
materials.
Those three materials lines.
That's the second one, the materials expenditure requirement?
But that's a percentage of the total budget though, so that if the budget changes, that number would have to change too.
Right. So that the MAR, we're actually quite a bit above. And, we're about 25,000 above that. But we can't get rid of that $25,000 without affecting the other
You will have
thing.
the other, you will have.
Do you know what I
Salaries.
mean? Because, yeah,
Because we have the salaries.
it's salaries. And by the way, that's why you don't want electricity in our, right, Joe?
I'd love to give it to you.
We want you to keep. it
I'm
down.
not following. Why is that the case?
Excuse me?
Why do we not want, like? how
Oh,
would
that
the
was a joke.
electricity-
It was just a joke. You know,
It was
it was facetious, sorry.
Yeah.
I'll tell you as a reader of the budget, I kind of get what you're saying. I mean, I always had to like, you know, when I was drawing up budgets, I had to put in my space, you know, budget needs and all. I'd love to see in each of these lines, the buildings, the grounds, the capital budget for each department, because it's very confusing to have to go through the whole thing and add them all up. But she was just making a little joke about that.
Well, I did,
Well, it's an old building,
I was-
here's our old buildings, so the electricity side, that's all.
You know, one other point I'll make, is, you know, our, and this is a tricky one because our budget situation next year in all likelihood, and I'm speaking for myself, is gonna be much worse.
Yeah.
Okay, so. And so if we just sort of take this conversation, this very, very useful and respectful conversation to its extreme. You know, we could be in a case where, you know, we're looking at cuts sort of for police, fire, what will we contribute to our ambulance service relative to, you know, the library system. And then, you know, at a certain point, the considerations relating to, you know, sharing of books and access to resources statewide is just it's not something that can be sustainable.
That is not, that's a big part of what the library is about. But what I think that a lot of people do not understand, unless you sort of live in the library like we do, is that the library is a shared space. And people come to us and they spend their days in the library. And I know that that does not sound like it's worth very much. But when you see it, you understand why it is. And I think that the benefit of this, I think our budget is like 1.25% or something of the town budget. I mean, it's small. It's like if I had $100, you couldn't even buy me a coffee, right? I think that the benefits of having this space available is worth so much more. It's not just about borrowing books, but it's a really hard thing to convey. The value of that.
I had in my little note here between the non-print materials, that those are like the ebooks, correct? And then what was the other, no, ebooks, I'm sorry, and non-print materials. I had a little thing where it was, or audio books, it was like $102,250 that you put in the budget. There was 70,000 for the ebooks and 32,250 for the non-print materials.
The 70,000 is also physical books. So the way that it's set up
Oh.
is,
Okay, okay, I
yeah,
see.
so that's print books and ebooks, and then in the non-print, we put in there downloadable audiobooks as well as audiobooks on CD, things like DVDs, the library of things, anything basically that's not a printed book.
And then subscriptions are specifically for various.
Subscriptions are things like the New York Times. So the New York Times is hugely popular. It's one of the most popular things we have. And so that comes here. It's about $2,500, I think.
I'm gonna ask you a question and just take it easy, okay? It's just, so we have two libraries in this town, and you know, at some point it's gonna come to the point, and I love Ramsdale, and I go there, and I live in Great Barrington, and I do go there because I love the building, I love the people who work there, and I use that library. But if you were to, because I remember I asked you about the volume, and it's true that whenever I go to Ramsdale, there is hardly anyone in the library. And I know the volume, when you compare Mason to Ramsdale is just totally, it's just one is right here and the other one there. If you were to just combine and have only one library in this town, and I know people will hate that idea and they will, you know, really be very unhappy about that. But would you see that as a viable option going forward? Because it really is, Phil was saying, at some point, we are just gonna be really dealing with some very difficult issues because we have, you know, fire department, police department, we have the emergency ambulance services that basically the budget is just, you know, and we have to have these services for the benefit of everybody, right? So
I'll let her answer this,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
that's
sure.
like a year-long study that we're trying to do a budget for now. So unless you're proposing to close the library now, and if you are, I'll leave.
Well, I think. No,
I think that really doesn't affect this year's budget.
Well, maybe not, and maybe yes, because.
Well, only if you're gonna close it.
We'll have to make some decisions.
I do have to ask you though,
Yeah.
when you've been in Ramsdale, because Ramsdale there was COVID and then Ramsdale was actually shut for, I don't know, 9 months or something before I was hired. And volume is increasing again, but you know, it takes time. Even over here at Mason, it was closed on Mondays. People come in now, a year later maybe, and say, oh, I thought you were closed on Mondays. It takes a long time for people to get.
No, I understand that,
Yeah.
but I'm just saying,
So
just.
if you're
just
asking
a
me-
thought. I mean, to me, you know, when we are really dealing with these budget issues, we will have to deal with it at some point. I really feel that way.
I'd like to say something, and this is gonna seem a little off base, but somebody put a post on the Housatonic Neighbors Facebook page
Right.
today. Her card broken down and she couldn't get into Great Barrington. She didn't call it. She couldn't get to Great Barrington, she said. It's like she really thought of it as a separate space. But and she was asking for advice. How do I get there? And the bus schedule wasn't working and there was like maybe these ad hoc things you could do. I don't think that one library building will be accessible to the people who would be best served in Housatonic.
Okay.
And Housatonic has been identified clearly and targeted for much more dense housing development. We're looking at more affordable housing there. Those are people who may not have computers in the home and want to come to the library to access services. I think that it would be a real compromise of social justice to not serve this contained, identified, cohesive village.
No, I mean,
And so that's, I think that, but that's
no one
something that I
want
would
to do
really,
that.
I would really say
Yeah,
is that
yeah.
we have to really, as a town, wrestle with, in all of our services. And so we do have two libraries, but I learned tonight that we have 3 different halls that serve veterans. And I think I heard that there were 4 clients in Great Barrington or something. So there's a lot that we have to look at.
You completely,
No.
we're not even gonna spend 20
I-
minutes explaining why you're wrong about it.
Okay,
He has 4 clients that he serves.
okay,
There's many more in all the
okay.
veterans.
But we have 3 of those buildings
Two
that are
buildings,
funded.
there's two
Okay.
are housed in one.
Can I just go back to Ramsdale for a moment and back to my point about space? And there may be 20,000 books in Ramsdale. I don't think that's the value of Ramsdale. When teenagers walk into the door and say, Betsy, can we hang out here?
No, I understand that.
And she says, yes.
I know what
It's a place.
Ramsdale does for people. I
Right.
totally get it. Yeah. I
Right.
mean, I've been there, I go there quite often, so. Yeah, but what I'm saying is it doesn't really have the same kind of, maybe it is something that would be more as a community center, but I'm just saying, as a library, it doesn't seem to have the same kind of volume that we have in Ramsdale.
Let me conclude, let me try to conclude my comments on this point. So fast forward, I know Steve will hate me for this, but I'm gonna fast forward the next year, okay? And all the great stuff we're reading about that's going on at the federal level. You know, what if we're at a point next year where we have an emergency budget situation and we need to cut every department 5-10% hypothetically? Okay, so in that context, you know, you won't be able to sort of come back to us and say, oh, this is my opinion, I'm sorry. You will be able to, but I don't think it will make sense for you to come back and say, well, we can't do that for the library, because that will basically put the kibosh on our certification, and that will.
No, you misunderstood the MAR, which is that if there's a reduction across the town. And that's the way we.
Okay, fair
explain it
point,
to the
fair
Commonwealth, so it doesn't,
All
that
right,
doesn't
all right.
affect it.
So,
This
all right,
is
so
a-
fair
it's
point,
a-
but that doesn't allow us to do any prioritization for emergency.
Let's try to get this back on track then.
Yeah.
Okay, we have spent 2.5 hours and probably added $3,000. We're trying, to get on, yes, trying to get under the levy limit, and more importantly, trying to lower people's taxes. That's not just get under the levy limit. And we're talking about a brief, apocalyptic event next year that may or may not happen.
So it's right that you didn't like that.
I don't like the word hate. I'll say dislike immensely.
And I guess I just want to jump and say, I don't usually agree with Steve when he says, let's just move on, but I guess I would like to, I would like to make a motion that we approve that we recommend, recommend the library budget of $663,512.
Second, anyone?
Second,
Any further discussion? All those approving?
I'm holding. You go.
aye.
I'm a no.
All right, I'm an aye.
What do you mean you don't normally agree with me?
About the moving on.
Okay.
Same motion?
Second,
Discussion.
just briefly, yes, I think the library is needed, it does serve a purpose there. And my feeling is if we need to cut something, I would cut something else other than the library. That serves the purpose of being, as we said, even a town gathering spot. And there's other things that need to be cut without getting rid of education. I just want to throw in, it just makes me sound like, it reminds me of the president who's saying, let's get rid of the education department, which is insane.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Page 25, Parks and Recreation, the updated one, thank you. Updated one of February 26, 2025.
This is updated because you recall that in the capital budget, we have some funds for cameras. We've been working towards getting cameras and other security mechanisms in place. And there's been a lot of discussion, another board about keeping tabs on what's going on. We've heard some comments throughout this discussion, so. I do recommend that you fund camera operation 7,500. That's the change.
I'd like to discussion on it. Why are you recommending the cameras and where?
Cameras that would be in place first are the Housatonic Park and maintenance field.
That we had issues there that
Oh,
weren't.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 I think we discussed at the last meeting that these cameras would actually save money in the long run for
There was
not
some
having to
discussion
repair
from-
things.
From the police that with evidence, they can try to reclaim costs, losses if possible.
Or even just to prevent.
Vandalism.
Yeah, to prevent.
Being in the parks, I can tell you, town's very generous with the parks. We do a really good job, but there is a lot of vandalism. And to try to discourage that or to apprehend people who participate is really important.
Okay, so
For discussion, I agree with the use of the cameras and the need for the cameras. But I've still suggest that rather than add more to the budget, that we try and find a place in the budget to remove $7,500 so we can afford this. That is my contention, and I'm sorry to say, but my feeling is to look for one of the larger items in the budget and decrease that item by the same amount. So I had this discussion last time with Department of Public Works and asked, is there some other place where we can remove 7,500, knowing that this is a difficult budget? I don't want to make that decision indiscriminately. Does anyone else have similar thoughts?
Go ahead.
Well, I guess I'll just say, I mean, could we do have 7,500 and I'm just proposing this from the summer intern mowers? I mean, we've increased that 24,000.
I mean,
What you would have to do is take it out a year,
Mhm.
and then next week we'll come back to that, because that's a completely different. line.
I understand, right, but so that's something we could think about next week.
So is next
Well,
meeting is
should we-
more for doing these swapping?
I was hoping we do it tonight, but we haven't swapped much.
Well, this is an attempt to do so, but you're saying we need to put it off.
Well, we can, you
We
can
already
do it now if
voted
you
on
want,
that
we'll go
budget.
back.
Yeah.
It's getting towards the end.
yeah,
So-
so I guess,
No,
you know, the intern, I have right, these are the intern mowers.
I'm sorry?
The summer interns mostly mow. And again, I'm not saying that we don't need interns and we don't need more, but we need $24,000 more.
I'm probably being pessimistic, or maybe it's even realistic, but cameras probably initially don't really stop a lot. There's the camera. If you wanna do something, you're gonna do it anyway. And I don't think your camera is going to deter a lot of things, and I don't know, I just think it's so tight.
Well,
And I talk about people losing jobs and stuff, and some of the things, and I'll say it again, but I didn't like to go out and be spending that money buying those stoplight signs, because if you don't wanna stop, you're not gonna stop, I don't care if there's 9 million lights on it.
So with Captain Carl out of here, let's just ask him, hey, police viewing cameras.
I just real briefly, I'd be in favor of the cameras, obviously. You give me a number on the vandalism, we see some pretty big bills that come out of when, you know, places get destroyed. If we can get that license plate of that make and model, that, you know, that car, or that truck, or whatever it was, the perpetrator, I think that'd be extremely helpful. And again, weighing 7,500 against Joe, you know, some of the bigger bills I think we saw this year were, like I said, being cost effective.
Well, can I, sorry, but can I assume that?
Let Joe answer, please.
We had some vandalism down at Olympia Meadows where someone went out and did some donuts. It was almost $4,000.
Yeah.
You know, and then it took the parks guys, and this is their cost and materials put in there. It was 7 loads of topsoil had to go in there at one time. And the guys do it, which took them away from doing other things. So what the cost that we spent fixing that was over $4 grand.
Yeah,
I guess I'm still, so.
And you know what, the police cop.
Go ahead, Joe.
What's that?
I thought you were still speaking, I was gonna wait till you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I just my feeling is that if you're gonna get away, and what's the percentage of rate? It could be just like anything else, like in police cases. If you don't get anything for it, you're not gonna get it, it's probably gonna go unsolved, we're gonna have a lot of things that aren't gonna be caught. I don't know, that's just my opinion, doesn't mean it's gonna fly, but that's how I feel about it.
Chris, we envision the cameras being, capturing the beach area as well as the picnic table area, like the whole area?
I think the idea is to have 2 up there, or is it just on the
Almost
one?
have 2 cameras.
There's two new poles that were installed as part of the project.
We haven't engaged anything, but there's ways you can get, they call it a pan tilt zoom, that the police department can dial it in and direct it certain ways.
Okay.
Or they can make a tour, you want to stop here for 3 seconds, go there for 3 seconds, go there for 3 seconds.
All right, but just so just 2 quick points. One, can I assume that in addition to the cameras, there'll be some prominent sign saying this area is under video surveillance, right?
Yep.
Okay, which obviously is a deterrent. And then second, this is an area where, God forbid, some really bad stuff could happen, given we're on the lake there, right? So to me, that,
Crime there before.
yeah, so to me, I very clearly support the cameras.
yeah.
I just wanted to say, Garfield, I respectfully disagree with your assessment that if there's gonna be crime, nobody's gonna get caught, because it's been proven over and over and over again with different crimes all around the country, probably all around the world, that people get caught and people are held.
Percentage isn't really very high.
And then, the town has paid for, play equipment and whatever, which is very expensive. And then it gets trashed. And so now we're out that, plus we have no idea who's done, or you hear a rumor, but that's not going to be good enough. I think cameras are a deterrent. And I also think the stop signs that blink, I know you're not a fan of it, but it's still, to me, it's still that flash.
Food costs. There's so many other things that we need, again, teachers are losing jobs, we're gonna spend $1,800.
Well, I just
on
respectfully
travel.
disagree. That's all.
That's fine.
Okay.
Respectfully disagree.
I respectfully disagree to my colleague.
Okay, so where are we? In the spirit of moving
I'll
on.
make a motion that we recommend the Parks and Recreation budget of 125,800.
Second.
You did the math there, right?
What math?
No, that's the one that
Oh,
includes
I'm
the
sorry, I'm
camera.
looking at the.
Oh, okay,
I'm sorry,
okay.
I'm sorry. Okay. 125,000, okay, so do we have a motion, we have a second?
Aye.
So, Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so.
Aye.
Just
give it out.
Same motion?
Take a deep breath.
Have a second.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No,
It passes 3-1. Okay. Page 26, and we are nearing the end. Besides, the time in my patience. So page 26 is boards and commissions, and I think there's a couple people from boards and commissions who want to speak. They'll be given a few seconds to speak, or a few minutes. But let's let the finance committee
You're
start.
up there.
Okay, so overall, the budget is down about 5%. From 21,000 last year to 20,000. Other than that, I think we can let people speak on this point.
Anybody for a historical commission online? Anybody for historic districts commission online? Agricultural commission? Vivian, you should be able to unmute yourself and introduce yourself.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm Vivian Orlowski from Lakeview Road in Great Barrington. I've been on the Agricultural Commission since 2010. And back around a dozen years ago, the Great Barrington Town Meeting voted a budget of $2,000 for the Agricultural Commission. Since then, under different chairs, including myself, we never requested an increase. We've been getting $2,000 a year since that was originally approved by town meeting. I just checked an inflation calculator, and if we had gotten just inflation increases like many other departments and commissions and boards, we would be at a $2,767 annual budget instead of a $2,000 budget. And then maybe we could, it would have been easier for us to take a cut. This time we're taking a cut on something that we never asked to increase. And we're working on a new project, and we've obtained, as in the past, we have often done grants from other sources to help boost our own budget. And in this case, we're obtaining a promise or a commitment to a grant of up to $600 from the Berkshire Conservation District for a new project of multicultural bridge at their new site at Solidarity House on South Main Street in Great Barrington. And we just started helping Multicultural Bridges Solidarity Farm and Gardening Project last year, and we're going to be continuing that this year. But this new project would provide the opportunity to help people with visible and training and materials to show how small patches of land, which is what many people only have around their own homes or apartments, small patches of land can be very productive in growing native, edible, and healthy food, something that's greatly needed. So the Agricultural Commission asks for you to consider restoring our budget, and we can move ahead with helping this Multicultural Bridge Solidarity House on almost 1.5 acres of land, abutting the road, so visible to all those passing, and extending through potential future agroforestry land to the Housatonic River. At the Solidarity House, South Main Street, Multicultural Bridge provides their own recently purchased site, which is more enduring than what's their current process at the fairgrounds. And the Ag Commission would focus on funding for tools and materials needed to develop and maintain healthy gardening soils, stabilize gardening soils facing climate extreme weather risks, which we're seeing more and more of, and obtain native non-pesticide treated plants. And that would also be expanded by the technological and materials a contribution from Berkshire Conservation District. There's a representative of Berkshire Conservation District online waiting since about 6 o'clock, and also the founder and CEO director of Multicultural Bridge, Gwendolyn Hampton Vincent, is online patiently waiting, still at work and not going home, so she can say a few words about this. Thank you.
Glenn, do you want to go ahead?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Hi, everyone. First, thanks for your time and thank you, Vivian. And I don't have a lot to add. We're really excited. We've just purchased our property about 6.5 weeks ago, and we're excited about expanding our Solidarity Farm and Garden project to our own site. And this work, I think the most important thing to say that hasn't been said is that Bridge had an opportunity to partner with the town of Great Barrington on the municipal vulnerability preparedness program on that climate resilience project. And so this expansion that Vivian just described is actually some of the work that our community members asked for, just like the farm and garden project at the fairgrounds. So I know it's a tough budget season, but I just would appreciate all of your support. Vivian did a great job summarizing, so if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them. And I just want to thank you all for your time and consideration. And we're very excited to be new property owners in Great Barrington. Thank you.
Thank you. I do have a question.
Oh, hold on a second.
Wait,
I think
there's
Gwen-
one more person.
Gwen, were you gonna also speak about the Du Bois Commission?
I would like to, but do you want me to do it afterwards or?
Yeah, let's just speak on that briefly, because then I'll recognize the other person who wants to speak.
Okay, so with my other hat, I serve as the vice chair of the Du Bois Legacy Committee with Randy. And I want to apologize on our commission's part because we did not get a request in for the budget. And that came to my attention when I was working with Vivian on this project. So I also am still celebrating that we had a really successful Du Bois Legacy Festival. It's our 8th annual that just passed. And we are bringing scholars and artists and activists to our area from institutions across the country to celebrate Du Bois, to lift up the values that we uphold of, racial equity, economic justice, civil rights, and education. It's always free to the community. It's an amazing process to watch our community partner with our Bridges resources as well. We bring in some of the other arts organizations. So Jacob's Pillow and Ventford Hall also brought world-renowned artists to come in. So the festival's growing. It's getting world recognition. I would really hate to not have it next year, or it'd be awful. So I'm just asking that you consider putting that back in the budget. And I really do understand. I've been listening all night about what the constraints are, but I am hoping that we can find some space to continue the festival because it's really important. And I also just want to shout out to the library. They were really great partners in the event. And I mentioned to Steve that I hope that we can continue to do it at the library. It has a lot of significance, and especially with the sculpture going up. But
Thanks, Glenn.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. One more person who hopefully is on the Ag Commission.
So I'm sorry, is Gwen asking, are you asking for the $5,000 to be returned?
Yes. Ambrose Clausen, very briefly, please.
Yes, hi, good evening. I'm the program manager at the Berkshire Conservation District, so I just wanted to briefly say that I support both of the comments made by Vivian and Gwen. I am very excited to work with them in the garden and at the Solidarity House, and we represent, the agricultural interests of the county. So the Agricultural Commission is an important piece of that, and I appreciate your support of their work.
Thank you very much. Okay, go ahead.
Can I ask, on the boards and commissions, the tree committee, this is a new line on the boards and commissions. What is the purpose of the tree committee?
I can't speak to, Joe, can you speak to that at all? I'm not forcing you, I just.
My involvement's been minor, they tend to look for some funds to plant trees, and we plant one. Sometimes they get donated, and sometimes we'll build them into a project. So
I think the idea is to basically, as the town loses trees over time, to replace them, and I think there's this notion how important it is for the environment to capture carbon. And I think that's what they are trying to do. And I know that they had like some fairly sizable requests, and then it could, came down and down and down. But I think it's something, the trees are important. I think Great Barrington was certified as a tree town, is my understanding, at some point, right? So it should be something to continue, but again, we have our constraints here, so the
Joe,
question
your
is how
budget.
critical. Yeah.
Sorry, in your budget, you have also a line for trees, correct?
No, there's nothing there.
Was it cut?
It was cut.
Okay,
There's
but-
nothing there.
And again, that was based on request from the tree commission.
Yeah. So that's really the only place. for-
We have been successful in adding trees to the projects, to park projects, to street projects. What is more difficult is, and National Grid is a great partner for us, and they were moving hazard trees and very few outages because Grid is out there doing a lot of work removing hazard trees. What we're less good at is adding trees on a maintenance, level. Which is something that either the DPW line or the tree committee line would do, so rather
Right,
than
right.
putting trees in capital budgets. Replacing trees here and there and neighborhood streets.
This account been moved around, because it was zero for,
Which one is tree?
the tree committee.
It's a new
account.
So it's a new account, so there's been no,
They
But
requested
they-
10,000.
No, they had it, because they planted trees last year, but I think it was in your budget.
Yes.
Yeah.
didn't we have, that
Two
there was,
years ago, we got 10,000.
Yeah, you put 10,000 and
is
that's what they use,
this the purpose for that, the individual that made the motion at the town meeting to add money to this budget?
I think so.
Am I getting that right?
Yeah,
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 I
yeah.
remember that
Yeah.
too.
So the way it looks like, are we not funding the Du Bois Commission?
Yeah, they never made a request, now Gwendolyn has made the request.
So what happens then?
The finance committee and select board can add it in or not, if we choose.
Oh, just being on the select board, and being an African American, it's important that Great Barrington still sticks to its roots. And shows the country that we're proud of who we are. We're a very diverse community. We're an open-minded people, and I think we can keep that going. So I think we should find this.
What are they
Yes,
asking?
I-
Committee, so.
What
All right, do we have a motion on this?
What are they asking?
Well,
for?
I don't even.
Well,
know.
Agricultural Commission is asking for $2,000, Du Bois Commission is asking for 5,000.
Correct, I agree.
And and I'm sorry, so the agriculture is asking for 2,000.
Yeah.
Sorry, and the Du Bois is asking for 5,000.
Correct, they're the same as last year.
I'll make a motion that we fund $2,000 for the Du Bois Commission and remove $2,000 from the tree committee line to pay for it.
You're taking down from 5 to 2, you're saying?
Yes.
Du Bois?
No, for the trees.
For
Well,
the
you
tree.
said
No,
Du
no,
Bois.
no, Du Bois.
I
is
said
two, yeah.
$2,000 to the Du Bois Commission, which is more than 2024, which is almost double of 2024, but remove that figure from the tree committee to pay for it.
Yeah, I guess it would be good to know what is the expenditures for the current fiscal year. Cause in 2024, the spending was 1,100.
Could we,
And it's great to.
could we talk to Gwen again? and
You can
ask
come
her?
back with those figures.
Oh, yeah,
at
that
the
would be
next
helpful,
meeting.
yeah.
I would
okay,
like to keep
okay.
it at 5.
But you can proceed with the motion.
The other thing I just want to say about the project, which it sounds great, is is there any sort of chance of sort of getting some grant money to support a project like that? It just sounds really.
Which project?
This is the agricultural
There are
and the
grants there,
small.
yes.
Well, they're saying that there's, we're, the 2,000 that we're asked to fund, they're getting, based on that amount, they're getting another $600 from the, I believe, from the Berkshire Conservation.
And is that contingent on they're getting 2,000
Yes,
from us?
yes.
But I think there are also other grant sources available for
Right,
this
I
kind
see,
of,
I see,
you know,
okay.
I'm involved with some of that stuff and I know that people fund it from other sources, so.
Yeah, I mean, just I think the Taconic Foundation would be interested
Yeah,
in something
totally.
like
Yeah,
this.
there are a
Yeah.
lot of sources, yeah.
So are you, can we convert that into a motion?
I'm still working on it, so,
So I
We
did
don't
make a
know,
motion,
yeah, we
and
don't.
I didn't know if we had a second on that or
Okay,
if
so
we
we
had
have
any votes.
there's three things moving around, so let's start with the Du Bois Commission. I
Okay.
think what we're asking is to get maybe another level of specificity on what is needed to continue their festival. So we have the,
request was $5,000. We
Right.
can get more information, but.
Well,
So
then,
here's the
then
other.
I'm fine, I'll suggest going with 5,000 for the Du Bois, and let's get information for the next meeting about what their need is.
But then we're keeping the trees? 5,000?
We haven't spoken to that yet.
Right, we haven't done anything.
Well, his motion was
Right.
2,000.
My motion was very specific.
Right, no, I
Was to
understand.
give $2,000 to the Du Bois Commission, which is double, almost double what they spent in 2024,
Mhm.
and to remove that same amount from the tree committee line
So
in
I
order to pay
Second
for
that
it.
motion.
So we have a motion and a second. Can we vote, roll call vote in the finance committee on
And I
that?
vote no.
I'd
Okay.
vote yes.
I vote yes.
I vote yes.
That's a
Did we have any
recommendation.
other
Yeah.
recommendations?
Okay, so
Recommendations?
just to review, we haven't touched upon the tree committee though, right?
No,
No,
Well,
that's.
yes, we
the
did.
tree committee.
we lowered the
did.
tree from 5,000 to 3,000.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, and Du Bois, we're saying is 2,
Two.
okay, and then we're saying agricultural commission is 2.
No.
No, we
are-
haven't,
we
haven't
have
done
not
anything.
mentioned the
Okay, so
agricultural.
where are we
commission.
on that?
Where I am not making a motion to give any money to the agricultural
Yeah, I
commission.
agree.
Okay, so we have a motion, sounds like we need a motion to respectfully
I don't think
decline
we
their
need to make
request.
a motion, because we're not.
We don't,
Okay,
because
it's not
it's
in-
not in the
okay.
budget.
All right, so then we're.
Yes, sir. Is there something out of order?
I have 3 yes votes on the original motion, and there are 2 missing votes.
No, I said no.
Said no?
And Phil,
And Phil?
No, I'm just, to clarify, we're making the motion is 2,000 for Du Bois. But if they come back with more detail substantiating what they need, we can elect to change it at that point, right?
Yes.
But the
So-
other part of the motion is that we are dropping
Reducing
the
the
tree
tree to
to
3.
3,000.
So it's moving 2,000 from the tree.
So the budget line remains the same for boards and commissions, but we have reallocated $2,000.
Okay, so I'm voting, I'm gonna say yes on that as well.
okay, so the select board is only going to either say yes or no to their motion. We can't add money to it.
So-
The finance committee who says yes or no. So Eric can make a motion. It's always a possible.
We haven't moved on the full board and commissions budget. So now I can make a motion to recommend the board and commissions budget for $20,000. Do I have a second?
Second,
All in favor?
aye.
No.
Aye.
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 Same motion?
Second with discussion.
Go ahead, Eric.
All right, now I'll have to understand the clarification. It sounded to me like you said we could not add money.
The finance committee is what puts the money in. We can say we don't recommend and we can explain. If this goes through, there's still a public hearing, there's still gonna be another vote, so.
Well, can I make a recommendation? Can I?
No,
I can.
well, you could say that you would like it, the 5,000 in there, cause I agree with you. But we can't put it back in there, cause it's a finance committee money.
Okay, well, then that's what I'll say, and just like we had a couple other caveats, if we don't use the money, we don't use it, put it back. We've said that about a number of things. That would be my thought.
So we have a motion to approve and we have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
No, no.
No, so we do not agree with the finance committee's recommendation, but that can change at the next meeting anyways.
Okay.
Okay, so it's 8 o'clock, we are stopping for the evening.
All right.
We've been here 3 hours and we're not gonna. And as I said,
When is our next meeting? We just clarify the?
so yeah, I'm gonna say that now. As I said at the beginning of the meeting, this is part of the, and I thought, yeah. Our next meeting, Tuesday, March 25th at 5.
The discussion next time on the verbiage, I'm confused about something and I just would like to know something.
Yeah, so meeting is still going on. At 8 o'clock at night, I don't need people standing there talking.
Thank you.
Thank
Just
you.
one quick question.
Yes.
When I read the document, it looked like there was a change and there's no longer a recommendation
Oh.
for interim repair of the bridge. I just want to know what we're dealing with.
Okay, so right now,
Yeah.
the office is not recommending it, but we don't have enough information, and we haven't even talked about it yet. we hope in 2 weeks to have more information.
Okay,
So
so then
that,
it makes sense to put this up anyway.
yeah,
I'm just-
yeah, I would have recommended, even if we got that far, I
Yeah.
would have said, let's not even talk about it because we don't have enough.
Okay, so we should not be anticipating in a panic that.
Well, you're not gonna be able to speak.
I don't wanna, I don't
No.
wanna speak, I just wanna
No, there's
understand
no,
what we'll know.
there's no reason to
about-
panic.
Okay, that's enough for me, thank you.
Okay, citizen speak time. Yeah.
Just clarify for me, please, what's the date of the continuation of this meeting?
March 25th, 5 o'clock here.
Okay, March 25th at 5 o'clock. It's 5
And will
o'clock?
we,
Citizen speak, you want to?
will we be able to speak?
The ambulance
Present
squad
our-
will be. Yeah, the ambulance squad, similar to what we did with the VFW tonight.
Okay.
Yes. Okay, anyone for citizen speak? Oh, we have hands up, okay. Glenn, go ahead.
Sorry, that my hand was up from a little while ago. I just want to clarify, what are the next steps with the Du Bois Legacy Commission? Am I to bring a budget, a more complete budget?
We'll be in touch with you, Glenn, to see how spending this year is going, and we'll give those updated numbers to the communities.
You hear that,
I'll
Glenn?
be in touch.
Thank you,
Yes.
Tom. Vivian,
Thank you. Having Gwendolyn here talk about the plan for developing a way for people to be able to raise healthy food on small plots of land and demonstrating that for the community in a way that would be a model and not available anywhere else. That kind of got overwhelmed by the discussion about the Du Bois Legacy Committee. I think Du Bois would be interested in people being able to learn how to provide themselves with healthy food at a time when buying it for many people is beyond their very limited budgets, with increased unemployment and fewer sources of support from the federal government. So I understand the need to support Du Bois Day. And I've attended in the past and helped coordinate when I was coordinator of the Martin Luther King Day for many years. But I don't understand why there was no discussion about the helping the people who are from diverse racial and ethnic backgrounds to learn how to deal with a food supply in a way that they could afford and do on a small plot of land. So
there'll be more discussion on this.
voted
There'll be
on.
more discussion on this on March 25th and then at the public hearing also. Okay, Vivian?
Thank
You're
you.
welcome. Amanda.
Hi, Ananda Timpain, 139 Seekonk Crossroad. I just wanted to speak to the library budget and say, as a library user, I benefit often from being able to use the resources throughout the state. And that includes accessing ebooks from Boston or hard copy books through interlibrary, the equivalent of the mass interlibrary loan, and doing anything that would make it so that Great Barrington residents didn't have access to those systems, I think would really be a real shame. So I just wanted to put my 2 cents in. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. Eileen?
Excuse me, 2 questions. I wondered how the finance committee voted on the library budget. Excuse me. And is the meeting on the 25th at 5 or at 6?
5.
Okay, you had said at the beginning of the meeting that it would be at 6.
And then I corrected myself.
Oh, okay, I missed the correction.
But I did, you're correct.
And I think on the first question, I believe the finance committee voted 4-1 to recommend the library budget.
Yes. Did you
Okay.
hear that?
Yes, but who was the one?
I think you know.
It
It was Bill.
It was Bill.
all right, thank you.
Any media?
Well, I did.
Yeah, right.
I don't know if you had any other questions.
No.
Hey, you're leading. No media, we are adjourned. Like, let's get that.